Stay a while and listen, for these followers of Zakarum have found some information they would like to share with you today. We are joined by Senpai Game and Elder Fro, the newest recruits of the Dakarum. Let us now begin the delve into the unknown becoming the known. Welcome, newest recruits. How's it going, guys?
Welcome.
So,
My first message to our new recruits, followers, and tenants, and the fellow Zachramites is that you need to stay hydrated. Because how can you teach others, and how can you defeat the evil in these lands in this world without good old water?
it is hot down here in the hell. We have to drink some water, gotta stay hydrated.
And don't you listen to that propaganda they've been spewing about blood.
Alright, so today we're going to talk about Diablo 4, what we learned from the beta, our questions that got answered, some patch notes that happened to come out recently, and a lot of other things that we wanted to do a cover of. This is going to be a overall view of our input on the game and not anything specific just yet. We will delve into that later on. Every week, going from this to today, we will be covering a specific class every single time on Tuesday and go into their mechanics, their information, their skills, their abilities, everything you need to know about them and how their gear works. For today, we will cover a lot of small topics that most people aren't really covering a lot of, so we can go through that and speak about that and hopefully give you some insight on how all that will go down in the upcoming month or two that you will be playing Diablo 4 before the season comes out. So I like to start off the first discussion with, since we started talking about Diablo 4 and the season's coming out, world tiers.
Yeah, I
When
think that's a good one to start with.
when you began in your game, what did you set your world tier on?
So originally I put my world tier on 1 because I thought to myself that if the only increases are experience and gear, then it doesn't really make sense for me to do that from the jump, since I just want to get through the content as fast as possible to test the content and then turn the difficulty up later as need be for experience, gold, and or loot.
Good point. Good point. I actually happen to have those pulled up currently. I'm going to make us a little bit smaller on my stream so I can share this also. If you would like to, you can also pull this up real quick if you want to. It is going to be just information regarding. Let me find this real quick. Is this it? This is not it. Is this one it? This one is it. So it's going to be information regarding the world tiers and what they are doing for us and all that good stuff. I want to go over this because this is a very important thing that he was discussing regarding all that. If you see here, this is world tier 2. The difference between world tier 1 and world tier 2 is it does go up to level 1 through 50 just like world tier 1 does. The enemies are more challenging. I found that to be about 40% more difficult with health, damage, everything about them. So it was a little bit harder to survive when you first started out. And they only gave you 20% increased EXP along with only 15% more gold. I found myself getting more gold from selling items. How about you?
Yeah, so selling items was mainly the main way of getting money, and then the odd random treasure goblin. I think over the whole beta, like me playing like 96 hours or something, I got only 9 treasure goblins. So, I mean, I don't think that's a bad rate, and they did give a big boost at the time, but I don't know how I feel just about items being the main way of getting gold. It's not a bad thing though, because if it's the main way of getting money and treasure goblins is just a side circumvent, or maybe using the new cube, the occultist, then gold isn't a good spot, a good ratio. I don't think that they're going to need to do much balancing for the acquisition of gold or the way of spending it. They're just going to need to worry about spending prices as world tiers go up.
So to touch on that a little bit too, and you brought up the gold discussion about it as the world tiers go up. In World Tier 3 and World Tier 4, the monsters still only drop 15% more gold. So I feel that items are still going to be your main source of income for gold due to this fact and this fact alone. Do you think that that is a good model to follow? That, I mean, technically the gold does increase as your level does increase. I did find that to be true from when my character was level 3, level 4, killing monsters. I got like 3 to 4 gold, to level 25, where I got 30 to 100 gold sometimes. Um, do you feel that as we increase in levels that we're going to get more gold, or do you think it's going to be like it's going to scale from world tier by itself? It's going to have more gold, and the mob level is going to scale to have more gold.
And that last part again.
Do you think that as we increase our world tiers, the mobs that they have a base level idea? So if you're looking at world tier 2, it's 1 to 50, world tier 3 is 50 to 70, and world tier 4 is 70 plus. Do you think the mobs are going to have a baseline increased in gold other than just the world tier increase in gold? Because do you think that level 70 world tier 4 mob is going to have a base value of like 5,000 gold and then they get a 15% more gold increase? Where a World Tier 3 level 50 mob is going to have a base value of, 500 gold.
I think it's actually going to be a baseline and a multiplicative, but I think it's going to be different than what you're thinking, perhaps.
Okay.
So I think that certain monsters will have a baseline of what they are presented to us as. So let's say, like, a random small demon, a lesser demon, gives us 10 gold. And then in World Tier 2, it's 15, World Tier 20, I mean, World Tier 3 is 20. World Tier 20. One
World
day,
Tier
one day.
20 is like 20 million, you know?
Yeah,
Good luck killing it,
but
though.
I think each mob type will have its base gold, and then I think based on the world tier itself, it'll be multiplicative after that. So,
Hmm.
let's say a big demon, a big boy, gives 50 gold in world tier 1. In world tier 2, he may have his baseline gold of, let's say, 60, but then it will also be multiplicative on top of that, perhaps, because if you look at World Tier 1 and World Tier 2 gold currently, it seems like it's not it doesn't seem like it's a static amount. I think that they're working on some sort of static number and a multiplicative number.
Yeah, and I think they have a range of gold drop too. That's the thing I want to bring up too, is that there's a range of gold drop. So I feel like in World Tier 4, mobs might even drop, that 100 gold sometimes because it has a range of gold it can drop from, which is going to be very, very intriguing. But back to one second. Back to the conversation about world tiers though. As you said, you started with world tier 1. Um, I played a lot in world tier 2. I thought world tier 2 was going to have a lot better stuff for me. I actually started off in world tier 2. Um, and I found myself slagging behind my friends because they were world tier 1 and they were slamming out the quest a lot faster, getting a lot more EXP than I was, even though technically every 5 monsters I killed was equivalent to 1 extra monster that they had to kill because it was 20% increased EXP. But I found the time that it took me to kill those 5 extra monsters was much longer than them killing 10 monsters. So I do think that you had the right idea of going to World Tier 1, and I think that starting in World Tier 1 is probably the play when, D4 does get released finally, and we're all excited to go in.
Yeah, because as we talked about, I mean, I believe your plan at the start is to race for world first level 100, and mine is to race for world first 100 hardcore. And from a hardcore perspective, starting on the lowest tier, I think is going to be the best to get myself the legendary powers and things of that nature to boost myself ahead. Like, whereas if I started in 2, I'm just making it harder on myself for no reason when the goal is to get ahead as fast as I can, even if it means having to feint difficulty at the start to get those gains.
Correct. And I don't think the gold difference is going to matter that much. I don't think the EXP difference is going to matter that much, especially since you're going to be one-shotting everything in World Tier 1. You're going to be able to kill things a lot more swiftly, especially in the speedrunning aspect, a lot more swiftly to complete the campaign, which is when you get the big gains. So,
Exactly. And a lot of people aren't going to be expecting to, if you are playing in such a manner, you're going to be able to take more movement speed abilities instead of defensive abilities. You're going to be able to take more damage than taking defensive options. And, even if you're on hardcore or softcore, it's going to be a big difference for your gameplay overall.
Yeah, and I was gonna touch on that too, actually. You said you're gonna go for more move speed, more damage over defensive. That makes sense for leveling. But once you get to complete the campaign, I do think you need to swap your idea to be more defensive, because once you complete the campaign and you go complete the capstone dungeon, you unlock World Tier 3, which is what I want to bring up
Yeah.
next. So to unlock World Tier 3, you have to complete the campaign and Cathedral of Light capstone dungeon in Kyle Vashad, World Tier 2 veteran. So, up to this point, you've been playing in World Tier 1, and now you've up to World Tier 2. As you just said, you'd have the same drops as I would if I played in World Tier 2. And the reason for that is that there's no additional drop chance in World Tier 2 versus World Tier 1, correct?
Correct.
Alright. So when you go to World Tier 3, are you going to go into World Tier 3 right away, or are you going to stay and farm in World Tier 2 for a little bit?
Um, Honestly, I may circumvent World Tier 2 as much as possible until I really need to use it. And I might just go from 1 to 3, honestly, in my opinion. Um, Considering that once I know I have enough defenses to survive in 3, and I'll be able to tell that from the easiest dungeon that we could do, that I should be able to be good in 3, because that's what's going to matter, is just being able to do the easiest dungeon in 3 right away. And as long as you have enough defensive capability for that, which you should, with, honestly, I'd say, like, some defensive gear, maybe even just a defensive build, but your damage gear, you should be okay.
Okay. I'm happy about that other point up too, real quick, actually. So you're saying that you're going to circumvent World Tier 2 entirely and just go to World Tier 3, and you want to have that gear to circumvent it all. There's one big point that is I think weighing on my mind regarding all of this, honestly, and that is renown. Renown is both a defensive and an offensive point to bring up. You said you're going to try and rush all the way from World Tier 1 to World Tier 3. When you hit World Tier 3, are you going to spend that time in World Tier 3 farming out the renown? Or are you going to wait until World Tier
Yes.
4?
No, I'm going to do the renown in tier 3, because that you start getting the gains in 3.
True.
The
You do.
gains from renown are the same in 1 and 2. You don't need to switch to World Tier 3 for renown, or you don't need to switch to World Tier 3 um, until, you're trying to do the first capstone dungeon on that level, as well as the renown points at level 3.
That is a very
So
valid
that would
point.
be my idea.
That's a very valid point, because the thing is that when I saw in beta was the renown, and how it worked was World Tier 1 you can get renown 1 and 2. Then World Tier 2 is when you can get renown 3, and then World Tier 3 is when you get renown 4 and 5 in the beta in Act 1 zone. Do you think that the other renown points are going to be also scaled that way, to where when you're in Act 5 you actually have to be in World Tier 2 to get the first renown rewards, and World Tier 4 for the last renown rewards? Or do you think that's going to be World Tier 1 is 1 and 2 automatically, World Tier 2 is renown 3, and then World Tier 3 is 4 and 5? Do you think it's going to be across the board?
I actually think it's going to be across the board on tier 1 and tier 2 world tier, considering that if you look at the starting quest, barbarians, rogues, and druids all have to go to the other parts of the map to finish their level 15 quest to get their advancements, such as sorcerers do. Um, and I'm missing a class, necromancers.
Necromancer.
They I think that being a world tier 1 and tier 2 is going to be static across the board in all 5 acts, and you're not going to need to go to world tier 3 or 4 until you're advancing your renown or trying to do the capstone dungeon.
That's what I was talking about, was the renown. Do you think that to get the renown rewards from renown 4 and renown 5 later on in the acts is going to
Oh,
require World Tier 3 or World Tier 4 to claim? Because in the beta, as I was saying, renown points to claim, all you need to do was for renown 1, you had to be in World Tier 1, which you're required to be in to play the game in the first place. Renown point 2, you could be in World Tier 1 also, but Renown point 3, you had to be in World Tier 2 to claim those points. And then
yes.
to reclaim Renown 4 and 5, you have to be in World Tier 3 to claim those points. Do you think that in Act 3, 4, and 5, that Renown 5 is going to require World Tier 4 to claim. Do you think the Renown is going to be World Tier 4 to claim at any point, or do you think it's going to be World Tier 3 across the board to claim all Renowns?
I think it's going to be three across the board to claim all. And the reason I say this is because looking at the developer updates that they've given us so far and thinking about how most players are going to play the game, especially players that are on console or newer players playing that are coming back to Diablo, they're going to want them to be able to get those rewards and feel good about those rewards early on. I don't think they're going to want to gate that. I I would imagine they're not going to. They might make it four for maybe Act 5, perhaps, but I would think that they are not, since they're probably just going to have a large focus on Endgame being about the Hell Gates and then being about, finding Hell Gates or similar things within Capstone dungeons or harder content.
So to touch on that a little bit more, I'm actually happy you brought that up. Do you think that the Renown is going to ever require you to complete Hell Tides? Because like you just said, they want you to do Hell Tides and Hell Dungeons and stuff like that. Do you think Renown is ever going to require you to do that, or do you think it's always going to be the same base quest, waypoints, zones, dungeons, and Altar of the Lilith, and what was the last one? Strongholds. Do you think it's going to be the same six across the board for all acts? Or do you feel like there's going to be a Helltide one for one of them that requires you to be in World Tier 3 to unlock the Renown?
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if when we get to as early as Act 3 that they start introducing the Hell Tides. I wouldn't be surprised if they started
For Renown.
introducing it then.
For Renown.
Yeah, for Renown.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
Renown.
I'm going to
I
be
would
clear real
I,
quick with
yeah.
our viewers that we're talking about World Tier 3 currently, and we're talking about Renown requiring Hell Tides to complete, and what he's saying is Act 3 would require Hell Tides to be completed to get Renown for Act 3 zone. So, just be clear. Go ahead.
Yes. I believe it's in the case of Renown, like you just said. It'll be Hell Tides requiring or Renown requiring Hell Tides as early potentially as Act 3. Just because I think they're going to want to show that off as they've already been showing it off. I don't think they're going to show it really in Act 1 or Act 2. Because I don't I don't think I think people are going to be getting near 50 in Act 2 if you tried really, really hard. But most likely people are going to be hitting 50 in Act 3 unless they nerf the XP even more, which they haven't talked about yet. So based on current beta levels, I would think that people are going to be hitting high enough to start World Campaign 3 and starting Capstone Dungeons at around Act 3. The average player, anyway.
So, I'd like to actually touch on that real quick. You're saying unless they nerf the XP. I completed the entire campaign, Act 1 campaign, and I was level 12 or 13, and I just smashed through the campaign. I didn't do any side quests, I didn't do anything like that, I didn't do any additional waypoints, nothing. All I did was go straight through the game, and I was like level 12 or level 13, and that was with me killing some additional mobs here and there too. So you're saying that people are going to be level 50 in Act 3? I think the average player might, because they're doing all the side quests, but I think that the majority of players is going to be 50 in Act 4, maybe Act 5, because if you looked at the other zones, honestly, the other zones looked smaller in comparison to Act 1 zone. And that's just from my point of view when I open up the map. The map is massive, mind you. The map is fucking massive. But I do feel that your XP is going to drop exponentially going from Act 1 to Act 2, because Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, and Act 5 all look a little bit smaller, other than the bottom left zone. The bottom left zone was ginormous. But the top one right above Act 1 was kind of small. The one to the left of that was actually smaller than that one. The one to the bottom left was massive, and the one to the bottom was a little bit smaller than Act 1 also. So, I don't know. I feel that if they don't... If they have it scaling the way it is right now, that's another thing I'm going to bring up too, and I hate to get off the topic of World Tiers because we're not even done with World Tier 3 yet. what is your opinion of stuff scaling in zones? Do you like the idea of level scaling, or do you prefer it to be a set moniker of Act 1 is 1 through 15, and that's all the zone's area level is 1 through 15? And then Act 2 is, 15 to 25. Act 3 is 25 to 35. Act 4 is 35 to 45. And then the last act is 45 to 50. Do you feel that that would be better, or do you think that that is limiting us and not allowing us to explore? Because I think that that is actually a really good idea that they should do that. And then in World Tier 3, they should make it to where it scales. From World Tier 3 to World Tier 4, it should scale to your level. But I think that World Tier 1, World Tier 2, while you're doing the campaign, nothing should scale. I feel like when you complete the campaign is when it should unlock world scaling for your character. What's your opinion about that?
So to answer everything you said there, because that was a lot, but to start at the top and go down, to keep on the track of world tiers, I think for world tiers that it is going to be very important for them to stay in line with levels for the average player, because they don't want the average player to hit, to finish the campaign. And once they finish the campaign, because they're going to know that a lot of players aren't going to want to do most or all of the side quests. Most players from a logistical standpoint are probably going to do about 20% of the side quest. And, if we factor all those side quests in with the main story, I think that most players currently, based on what we've seen, would hit max level at around 70 to 80, maybe a little higher, because some players just like to kill things and explore. Probably a lot of people do, and they probably will on the launch. Most people aren't going to be playing like me or you, or they're going to be rushing to endgame for the average player. Um, but then that also points back to a lot of people are doing their research and figuring out, hey, I could do my capstone dungeon as low as possible, and that is going to make them, usually for the average player at least, want to do that by Act 3, if not earlier, like, we will, for example. So um, I think that the experience should be semi-capped to a zone. Like, they most likely have projections and expectations of where each player is going to be by the end. Like you said yourself, in Act 1, you were level 12. I remember finishing Act 1. I was able to finish it, I think, around the same level, actually. Somewhere between 10 and 13, I believe. So I think that looking at that expectation and going forward, we'll definitely see people hitting max level after Act 5 at around 70 to 80. And then people going back to get bonuses. Uh,
Okay, so the one thing you missed there was, I know you're trying to think of what I
I'm trying to think.
asked.
I was trying to think what I missed.
Yeah. So the one thing you missed was, my question was, do you think level scaling is good, or do you think having level being a static thing in zones is better? Now,
Okay.
not saying that
Go on.
one is better than the other. What is your opinion on it? Is what I meant to say. My
Yeah.
bad. I mean
So
something better.
my opinion is that I think static leveling keeps the game more in checks and balances and allows for difficulty to stay more relevant and for expectations of difficulty to be in a good spot throughout the whole game, from the very first quest all the way up to the hardest content that we'll be doing all the way end game. um Scaling, though, on the other hand, makes it more accessible for group play with all types of parties, as well as random parties that you might run into the world, or just random world content, since we know you're going to be able to run into shards with other players. And from what we know right now, those shards can be up to, I believe, 16 people in a world boss zone. And I think the most people I've seen at an event is 12.
It was
So it might
12.
be a little 12.
Yes.
Yeah, it might be a little less for an event. So I think that, based on seeing, me running up to some events, since I was just farming events at the end of beta at level 25, and then seeing players anywhere from like level 4 to like level 20, usually at the end of the beta, I think they're gonna keep it non-static, due to the nature of being able to help and play with more players and trying to have more of a community feel to the whole game. And In my opinion, that's probably better for the game and the community. Well, probably better for the community, maybe not better for the game, but I think it's a good blend. Like, I think there's going to be a good blend as long as they keep it static at endgame. The leveling scenario, the campaign, I think it's fine for it to not be static.
So my other point that I brought up, which was upon your opinion of being this way, is a really good idea. However, do you think that they should lock the level scaling of zones behind completing the campaign? So let's say you get to Act 5 and you're level 46 or whatever, and it's 45 to 50, right? You complete the entire campaign and you're level 51. The moment you complete that quest, it unlocks level scaling worldwide. So now everything now becomes instantly level 50. Instant level 50, level 51. So now you actually gain benefits from going back and doing the side quests. This this deters players from wanting to do side quests. So I think static leveling, in my opinion, is probably the best way to go about it. Because in that way, people who are super strong can go back to those dungeons, back to those zones, and just, let's say hypothetically, we all farmed the red boss in the far west zone of Act 1. Let's be real. We all farmed it. We all went there over to kill it because we all wanted to see what the hype was. So, let's say you're Joe Schmo, you never played the beta, and you're going there, and you happen to get one shot by this level 35 mob that you have no idea even exists there. You just have this quest to go kill this red mob, because you get it at like level 15 or something like that. Like, you can actually get it super early on. They
Yeah,
run over and
I think yeah, level 15 is when it activates, but I remember going to that area. Like, you can explore early on, but
oh
if you're
yeah,
just following the quest, you're gonna get there by, I think, the time you're level 13.
yeah, and so you can go over there and you can fight this guy, and he's level 35. He will just one-shot you. And now when you hit max level, you're level 50, like, I'm gonna go back and beat this guy up. You go back at level 50, and this guy's now higher scaled because he's level 65 or something like that now, and he's still just as difficult. So I think static zones is fine for World Tier 1, World Tier 2. I think that World Tier 3 is when it should become scaling, because I feel like you now have all the waypoints unlocked. You unlocked World Tier 3. That means you completed the campaign, you completed the capstone dungeon. You now have World Tier 3 unlocked. I think then the world should be your oyster. Honestly, I think World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 should become dynamic scaling to your character level. I think up to that point, though, should be static 110%, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying that you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I feel that by doing that, it allows players to go back and feel the strength that they gained from those levels and from those items in the previous zones where they were having issues or difficulties. Possibly, you're not saying they did, but they could have been having problems or difficulties fighting these monsters, and now they're able to go back and just absolutely destroy these monsters that are like, level 10, level 12, because they're level 30, level 40, and they're able to go back and just feel super powerful. I feel that right there was really fun to do in Diablo, because you're able to go back and just destroy these mobs, and it was a lot of fun to do because there's no dynamic scaling. Like, if I was to go log into my level 99 character on Diablo 2 and go to normal difficulty, everywhere had a level skew. If I was to go in there, I can just destroy normal difficulty mobs really quickly. And I think that was really fun. Since the dynamic scaling has been introduced, it has led to a point to where now everything is dynamic scaling, and I think that there should be limitations on where you should be allowed to explore, because, not going to say that there is, but let's say that you hit level 15, like you said, with your barbarian, and you go out there to complete the quest line for the barbarian to unlock your arsenal, right? We'll go more into depth into this later in a later week. But let's say you go out there to unlock it. On your travels there, your average Joe Schmo, you see all these quests that you now want to complete in this new act zone that you don't technically have unlocked yet because the campaign has not allowed you to go here yet. You now complete all these quests, and you are able to do them because it's dynamic scaling. I don't think that is right. I think that quest itself should have its own instance dungeon for you to go into and complete and get your arsenal unlocked. And everything else around you should not be allowed to be completed yet, because that is going to derail you from the campaign entirely. It's going to waste a long period of time, And I don't think that doing that is the right way for a video game, in my opinion.
Yeah, so a lot there, but I'm going to start off from where you started with the scaling and dynamic scaling. So yeah, that was the point I was going to make was linear scaling versus dynamic scaling. Because with the linear scaling, I can 100% get behind and agree that, if you look at older games such as Diablo 2 or even some of the linear scaling in Diablo 3, it makes for a earlier, better game experience for most players, but the dynamic scaling does help out, I think, more players overall, considering that we're going to have console players playing now again, or even people that are playing now with their children that have grown up with Diablo, since we're, 12 years from Diablo 3. Um, and I would also think with the dynamic scaling that I think it is actually okay for certain parts of certain things to be dynamically scaled. Because, for example, with the red bosses, as we talked about, the stronghold bosses, um, they scale to your level, but what we do or do not know, what we don't really know is how hard they scale to your level. Because I've killed the stronghold bosses anywhere from like level 8 or with level 8 all the way up to 25. And at 25, they are your level, but they are much easier, not just due to gear, but even without gear. So on my Lightning Sork, I was playing without any legendaries, as you know, until I got to 25, basically. And I fought my first stronghold boss at level 17. It was a challenge, but I was able to complete it, and I did it as a full damage build, no crit. I just had to play very, very well. But then when I went back to that boss, or when I went back to that boss again at level 21 or 22, I think it was, and then another one at 23, um, it was scaling to my level and it was hitting me harder, but it was also taking more damage. And obviously that makes sense because of scaling in some ways or some capacity, but I don't think everybody's taking into account exactly the way that the scaling works. And it'd be nice to know how the dynamic scaling does work in the world zones and figuring out what exactly is dynamic, what isn't dynamic. And I'm sure we're just going to find it out naturally by playing the game more, but it would be nice to know from the developer standpoint, hey, when you're playing this certain perimeters, damage types, health, etc., is a dynamic scale and this is a regular scale, or if there's a range. It might not be linear, it might be a range like we talked about earlier with gold. Um, and that would be really good to know.
So you brought up a really good point. The stronghold. I don't know if you know this or not, but the northern stronghold in Act 1 is level 25 base. And the reason why it is because once you complete the stronghold, you unlock a world event there that is level 25 also, which is why it will, or level 30 I think. It was level 30 I think, which is
Level 30.
where you could get the unlock for the mount. So the northern stronghold was actually level 25 baseline. I actually don't know if it scales to you or not because now that you're saying that, I remember hitting 25
No,
on my necromancer.
no, that one doesn't scale. That one's
No, no, no.
linear.
I know. I'm talking about the other ones. I hit level 25 on my necromancer, and I don't recall the stronghold ever changing. I recall me going into the right stronghold and it saying level 15. The mobs may have scaled to my level, but the zone level did not scale to my level,
Correct. The zone
which
level is always static. The mob itself scales.
which is what's very confusing and daunting for some players because some players will go into that zone and see that the zone says level 15 and the level 25 and they'll start fighting stuff. But I recall that boss killing me twice because I played very poorly and messed up quite a bit on my skills. And I missed, and I stood in a lot of bad because I was just having fun with it and just testing some stuff out.
Yeah.
But with that zone saying level 15, some players would see that and think that it's okay to go in there and do. And as you just brought up about stronghold scaling, and it'd be nice to know what does scale and what doesn't scale. Um, it's very interesting that that zone when I hit tab and opened it all up and I moused over it, it said 15, but the mobs were killing me. And I don't think level 15 mobs should be able to kill you if you're a fully decked out level 25 character. But yeah, I do agree. It would be nice to know what does and doesn't scale. Because whenever you mouse over zones in your level 1, you see zones that say 25, 30, 45, and all that stuff all across the entire map. And as you level up, those levels don't increase. If anything, as you get closer and closer to those levels actually decrease to match your level, which is very
Yeah.
very interesting. Because I feel like they don't want you to go to the zones right away, but as your level increases, those zones decrease to match your level to scale properly with you, so you can be there. Because you could have technically been there at this level hypothetically, if you just smashed through the story quest and didn't like do anything else and all this and all that. So I think it's very interesting that they do that. But back to
Uh,
world tiers. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, to also answer your other questions too, real quick, that you talked about, I'm gonna touch on exploration and world bosses. So, something that you didn't differentiate from is the stronghold bosses from the world bosses, because you mentioned the one that we rushed to on the left side of the map or the west side of the map in Act One. We have the stronghold there, but you were specifically talking more about the world boss, or not the world boss, but the zone boss, and there is specific unique zone bosses that are static levels. There's one over in the west that everybody was killing constantly that
Red.
dropped level 35 mace and gear up to level 35 or 28. And then there was also the level 25 boss that's right outside of town to the east, and he's 20 or 25, I think. And it's pretty jarring, right, walking outside of town and seeing that. But that kind of stuff is really good because it reminds me
Yeah.
back to like older RPGs and MMOs. The major one that comes to mind is I think his name is Morlane over in Duskwood. He's like a level 35 elite in the graveyard, but all the mobs there are like anywhere from like level 18 to level 25. That is so cool because it's like, okay, how can I kill him? And then you realize, oh, I'm playing an MMO type RPG, so I should probably get my friends, get a group, get my guild, or really man up to the challenge and buff myself up, get as much defensives, potions, whatever I can, and take on that challenge by myself. Either way,
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
really cool and it's good for the player base. I think having those unique bosses that are higher level and lower level zones is good because, as you
Yes.
said, people could go back and kill it, or they could get a group to kill it, figure out the best way possible from them. And then I also believe that it is good for there to be static linear dynamic, um, and scaling as well. Well, it could be static. It could be static, which is generally always going to be linear, and then there could be scaling that's linear or dynamic or a range. And I think all of that's good for the game. It would just be good to know exactly what is and isn't in those ranges or those types.
Agreed.
Uh, I think next up, that's what I have to say about that. I think the next thing that I would have to talk about is exploration. So I don't think exploration should be capped because I can understand your standpoint where I can totally agree that, from a new player's point of view, if they have to go over to X Zone to get a certain arsenal or a certain signature spell or whatever their class gets at level 15, it could be very jarring to see like, oh man, I'm walking into this new zone with all these quests and what am I going to do? But I think that's the way that they want to have it. They want to have it such as The Witcher or other RPG games that have a map where you could explore, and hey, if I want to go all the way down to what is it, Scrollin Hell or Scrollin Gellin, all the way at the start, if I want to go down there, up there, all the way at the start, and that's where I want to go, I have the opportunity to do that. I would I could agree that it is great for some content to be locked behind a certain level, but I think they're trying to make the current map, the map that we see at least in our own current peer view, accessible to all at any level, so it feels like you have that option. And that is very overwhelming for a lot of players, but you don't have to. It's your choice. Like, at the end of the day, everything you do is choice. And as long as that choice is explained well, and it's explained decently well right now, I think Diablo 4 will be in a good spot because people always want more choices, more options. Like, you hear it from gamers all the time. Like, people wish they had more options, more choices, and I think that players are going to have many, many different choices. I think the only players that may find themselves in a predicament is the players that play in meta type ways. But even then, there's going to be a lot of content and a lot of different unique bosses, world bosses, side content to farm, all different sorts of things, certain mob areas and types. And I'll definitely get into some smaller things later that I have listed as well.
Yeah, I'd say
Um,
mobs dropping specific items or having a higher chance to drop
yeah.
items is really, really cool, but we'll cover that later.
But that's what I had to say about that. Oh, hey, Mr. Sapo.
Other guys. And
Thank you, Sapo.
to touch a little bit more on the World Tier 3 like we were talking about a moment ago, do you have it pulled up on your screen?
I don't have World Tier 3 pulled up right now, but I
Here,
can show it from
I'll
yours
at you.
end.
No, I'll at you
Yeah.
so you have it.
Okay.
It's gonna be in my Discord. Here you go.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and reply at this, and then at Elder.
Oh, hey, in the Sanctuary in the Reddit Discord, are you able to post our stream? Because I'm not high enough level yet to do so.
Are we allowed to? I don't think we were allowed to.
It says you need permission to post in those channels. I don't know if they need to give you access themselves or if you need to be a certain level.
Where's that at?
In the Sanctuary Discord, in content creation, it's right below drop
Content creation?
characters
I
and
see it.
clans.
So
Yeah.
I can create a new post?
Yeah, I can't do it, but maybe you can.
I can.
Okay. This is what you could post a link with both of our streams or mine or whatever. That's what I was posting around.
Go ahead and copy that real quick. I'll post this in.
Mr. Sapo, nice to see you, though. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, no fro right now. It's growing back, though. It's growing back. We're getting there. But, enjoy my hats. Enjoy my brims. Next thing that I want to talk about, since we talked about scaling world tiers and exploration, and since we're still on that topic a little bit, I touched on the instance dungeons. I agreed that, yeah, it'll be good for them to be instance, for players not to maybe feel so overwhelmed, and not even just from an overwhelming standpoint, also for a server lag and latency standpoint. There's going to be many, many players that are going to see, oh man, I hit level 15. I want to get my arsenal for my barbarian because that sounds sick. They're going to rush over there as fast as possible. There's going to be 55,000 barbarians there, all lagging out and complaining on Twitter and the forums, and that should be instance content. That will help them. That'll help the players. It'll be better for everybody for that to be instance.
Yeah, what I said basically was how it should be instanced. Yeah. I think having that is gonna be really nice. But yeah, I think we basically have beaten the dead horse now about the whole scaling idea. I think.
Yeah. And then to talk about the overwhelm too, like we talked about I've talked about the overwhelm a bit.
Overwhelm mechanic. The overwhelm damage?
No, overwhelming players. Sorry,
Okay,
not
okay,
overwhelming
okay,
mechanic.
okay.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to that yet. That's a whole different topic.
I was like,
no,
whoa, we can't go that far.
Yeah. The overwhelming of players. Players are naturally going to feel overwhelmed because this is such a bigger game. This is such a monumental leap in jump for Diablo as a series that this is something that players that just play Diablo are not going to be expecting. If you played other RPGs in the space or, other Blizzard games, you may be expecting this or be comfortable with it, but it's going to be very jarring for a lot of Diablo players or even just other ARPG players. Like, there's games like Lost Ark that are ARPG-like, and have a lot of this kind of stuff, and they've definitely borrowed from there or Path to Exile or even just other things. But it's just something totally different that nobody's going to be used to that just plays Diablo.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to touch a little bit about too, but we'll talk about that later when we compare ARPGs. As of right now, I think we should. That's going to be an entire different conversation, I think, because that's going to be delving into Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Diablo 1, and starting on the franchise, Path of Exile, what has grown from that, Last Epoch, and all those type of games. Because there's been a lot of ARPGs that have came out recently regarding like what Diablo has set and started, and I think that'll be a great discussion for a later time. So let me go ahead and write that down real quick. ARPG growth, ARPG growth.
I'm going to stop you just for 1 second, real quick, to say thank you for everybody that's hopping into both of our streams here and checking us out. We're about near 50 minutes into our discussion right now about Diablo 4, our first impressions, and just talking about world tiers as they stand, and then the things related to world tiers. We haven't moved on to any deeper or smaller subjects with the stats of the game or the classes just yet. We're just talking about the world tiers and the way that content will be affected by them going forward. Gold has been covered. We've talked about scaling, talked about quest a little bit and systems that'll be in play. I'll let Gnostic jump in now and tell us what we're going to be talking about next.
We also did touch on a little bit on exploration, the scaling of mobs and strongholds and stuff like that in dungeons, and unlocking World Tier 3. To unlock World Tier 3, we talked about doing World Tier 1 to complete the campaign, swapping World Tier 2, and doing the Capstone Dungeon to unlock World Tier 3, and immediately go into World Tier 3. And the reason for that is because World Tier 2 offers no benefits at all, no increased drop chance, 20% increased EXP for monsters was not that big of a deal. That's one extra monster for every every 5 monsters you kill, you get one extra monster. Which, if you kill those 6 monsters in World Tier 2, you could kill 8 to 12 of them in World Tier 1. The 15% additional gold from monsters, we did not find a big difference between World Tier 1 and World Tier 2 ourselves from testing, and the enemies being more challenging, we found bosses to have about 30 to 40% more HP and dungeon bosses from World Tier 1 to World Tier 2. That's a massive difference in World Tier difficulty. In my opinion, that does not make World Tier 2 appetizing to play at all. Unless they increase the drop chances of like yellows or more yellows drop. I don't think World Tier 2 is ever going to have a place for me to play in World Tier 3, which is what we just started talking on. We haven't talked about sacred items yet, or uniques, which is what I'm talking about next. Sacred items, as you guys already know, if you don't know, are basically stronger versions of items, and blues and yellows can drop as sacred also. And what sacred is it just has a higher roll chance of affixes on it versus regular items. And to imbue sacred items with a legendary affix, you need to either have the dungeon completed, so you have the. This is something I really love, and we'll talk about that later. Is that you're able to complete a dungeon and get a legendary affix to imprint onto an item, and that can be on any item. That can be on normal, sacred, or even ancestral, which we'll get to that later too. So you're able to take those dungeons that you completed and imprint that onto those items. But to imprint on a sacred item, you need to have a sacred legendary to imprint on a sacred item. From people's understandings currently, we have no concrete evidence in that form, but I do think that that's a really cool system to make us refarm. And it is going to be kind of boring, of course, by the fifth, sixth season when you have to refarm 8 to 10 times on ancestral items. They might change it later, or it might not ever come to be. But if it does come to be, then that'd be pretty cool for the first season. I think having it to where we have to go out and farm all these items, and I think that's pretty cool. What's your opinion on the unique items only dropping in World Tier 3 and higher, and sacred items starting to drop in World Tier 3?
So I'll make a correction there first, but I was also going to add in unique items since they're a different item on top of ancestral and sacred. But to correct you, actually, unique items can start dropping actually as low as Act 1. Me and Dark Train, who were playing together, we had it. We
Those are
killed the
flavor text.
butcher.
Those are flavor text items. Those are flavor text uniques. Those are not. Those are not.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's
they're in the.
that's
They're
being
still
specific.
classified. They're still classified in the same tier, though.
Yeah,
Currently.
I mean, yes, they are uniques, but that's getting like nitpicky in my opinion, because those are Easter egg uniques, and there are 4 of those Easter egg uniques that can drop at any world tier, but they only drop from one specific thing.
Yeah, it's good to mention though that there is a difference between those, and they are
Yeah, yeah.
there as well.
We'd get to that on World Tier 4 also, because it says new uniques can drop. So we're limited to certain uniques in World Tier 3 versus World Tier 4. And I was gonna cover
Yeah.
those when we got to World Tier 4, but yeah.
So I will answer your question quick about the item difficulties real quick, but to answer some questions, for the video delay, I'll check on my side and see if see what I can do about the delay. There should be no delay on my side though, because I'm running on low latency mode, I believe. I would believe Nas is as well. To answer why Senpai Game has nothing in his room, because Senpai Game is a true Zechariah. He believes in the purity, the minimalistic. He doesn't need anything around him. He just needs the light. the light of the world, the light that is going to shine down on us from the angels and keep us clear.
This is actually why, right here. This is actually why it's a headset. I'm waiting for uh, Diablo 4 to become VR, and then I can play it. That's why I have nothing here, is because I have all this space for virtual reality, and I walk
Oh,
around a
that's
lot.
great. Oh, that's such a smart idea, actually. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
been looking to
so
do some VR stuff. That'll be awesome.
this is actually set up for
Um,
virtual reality. That's why
yeah.
it's like this. Just so we're
J j
clear.
j yeah, yeah, and Nas, if somebody may be holding you against your will, such as Lilith or one of the other demons, just blink or nod or give us some kind of signal throughout the stream.
I can't do that because if I am being held captive, which I'm not saying I am, I'm not saying I'm not, but if I was to be, I can't really say that I am, can I? Because I yeah.
Well, hopefully none of the demons, hopefully none of the demons or hell or even the angels have you held captive.
Well,
Um, and also Gnostic was here as well. He is the one I was doing the druid testing with on the beta.
okay. Oh my gosh, my headset won't stay plugged in.
Oh, a jump house. Yo, jump house for VR sounds actually sick. That's
Right.
crazy.
All right. Back to the topic at hand, though. The
Yeah, back to the
whole
topic.
sacred items and
Yeah,
uniques.
so sacred items, ancestral items, unique
Oh, no,
items.
no, not ancestral
Um,
yet, but yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, first to talk about unique items. I think it's going to be very jarring as well to have to go back and farm uniques. I'm hoping that they allow for uniques to be upgraded through the occult. That would be the most ideal situation, and I think that they should do it at like you could trade in X amount of legendaries to upgrade unique, and then if you want to use sacred or ancestral ones, you could upgrade it more with that. And I think what would be best for the game is to keep unique items at a static level and just allow them to be upgraded to whatever their static max is instead of uniques being like a unique sacred or a unique ancestral. We don't want to have too much extra craziness that we know we already have. That would be a little too much, I think, personally. We don't want that level of RNG because that'll just make players really mad at the end of the day. Like, yes, there should be RNG with certain things like that, but I don't think it should be for items per se. I think it should be more with cosmetics. Maybe if you want to have some items just have a static low drop chance, sure, but the chances is, I think, too much of a gamble unless it's like a super super unique rare item, and it depends on how many uniques they're going to give us. As we know, they have 4 static uniques, and then on top of that, I think there is 6 other uniques, or 6 to 9, correct?
That's a lot more than that.
Is there a lot more than that?
There's a
I
lot
thought there
more
was
than
only
that.
13
No.
that has been data mined so far.
No, there's a lot more than that. Here, go and keep talking, and I'll
I,
pull
I
it
I
up.
have to pull up. I'd have to pull up the website. I can't remember what.
I'll pull it up right now, and you keep talking, and I'll tell you how many there are.
Okay, yeah, I thought there was only 13 altogether for uniques overall, but yeah, I'll keep talking. Um, for sacred items, I think that sacred items are gonna be fine in a good place. Not too worried about those, and ancestral too. I think the acquisition of those and the way that you get them makes good and total sense. Coming from capstone dungeons, hell tides, things of that nature, harder content, that makes sense. That's good. It's just uniques that are going to be a little worrisome depending. And I would imagine that they're going to have higher drop chances at higher world tiers or in hell tides. So I would imagine that's going to be the case. But they also, as we know, like we said with the 4 static uniques from different bosses, they may also have static drops themselves from certain bosses or certain dungeons or even certain hell tides.
All right, so I'm on the barbarian right now, and just the barbarian alone. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Just the barbarian alone has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, uh,
Oh,
12,
actually, okay.
13,
So
14,
I understand.
15, 16,
Yeah.
17,
Okay. So
18,
this is
19,
where
20,
I was
21, 22.
The terminology you're using isn't wrong, but I think there's better terminology. So you're using unique as class specific.
No, no, I'm
I
using
think
unique
we
as in an overall, general, like overall. So the thing is that that's what I'm gonna get touch on to you about this too. Was this one says in World Tier 4 it says new ancestral items and new unique items can drop. we're going to cover that here in a moment because we're already on the topic, so we can cover it now. Do you think that the new unique items are going to be powerful previous unique items like the Grandfather, the Harlequin's Crest, aka the Shaco, and stuff like that? Do you think that's going to be those unique items? And do you feel that the new unique items, I can speak, is going to be class specific unique items? Because if you look at just the base normal unique items, there is only like 13. I think in total that are no, not even 13. I think there's like less than that actually. So there's
It was
one.
like 9 to 13.
No, I think there's even less than that actually. So there's one, two.
Just to say while you're looking at that, also, it was my bad.
Three,
I understand what you mean now. You were talking
four,
about uniques and class specifics, but also the potential of class
five,
specific uniques.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 base uniques that people can all share. 11.
Okay.
And that is it. That's all there is. And then there's class specific uniques. So
Oh, I was in the ballpark then, so that's good.
yeah. So isn't that interesting that there is no like direct explanation of it saying and class uniques can drop. It just says new unique items can drop.
Yeah, I don't think they want to talk about class because if they talk about class and say like class, then everybody is gonna wonder how many different uniques that are class specific there are for each of the classes. Like, imagine if you're playing a druid and then you find out there's only one unique that is class specific, and then you're gonna be like, okay, well, if there's only one, it must be so good that if I don't run it, then I'm just playing the game wrong. So they don't want to pigeonhole people into that sort of scenario. So I don't think that they will do that off the jump. And I'll be a little surprised if they do. I think the only way they'll do that is when seasons arise. And then for seasons, they may be like, okay, we want to make this build, and this build stronger, and we're going to do it with these unique items in this way. But I wouldn't even prefer that, honestly. I prefer them to just look at it more from the um legendary perspective in general and then make them or balance them in that way or in the talent trees. And I would prefer for legendaries and for uniques to stay as fun staples, interesting staples, like things that affect your gameplay more than just give you a power boost. Because anything that gives power boosts, we have many multiplicative scalars that cause for damage to become outrageous, such as we've seen with barbarians able to literally one-shot things in the beta at level 25. And obviously we're only on world tier 2, but and that is min-max to all levels of hell, but we don't want that to be a constant, especially when we get to world tier 4 and barbs just one-shotting things with just minimal multiplicatives. And we don't want, like, don't get me wrong, multiplicatives are fun, but they're not necessarily good for the game. If you're going to have a multiplicative, it needs to make sense in a certain context with a certain build or certain multipliers or other amplifiers. And even deterrents.
I agree. I do think that saying that new uniques can drop is kind of upsetting because that means that some people that want builds. So let's say hypothetically, I was to play a minion build, right? And I was playing a minion build, but I want to have a bone spirit, and I want to have that one unique necklace that gives me 100% increased essence, so my bone spirit can hit harder because my bone spirit does X amount of damage depending on how much spirit I spend, and it consumes all my spirit. So, when I have all this amount of spirit, I cast this one bone spirit. It's basically just a giant bomb that is throwing at the mob. If that necklace is only available in World Tier 4, and my build revolves around that being my one spender, I actually am half on damage due to that one unique being there. So I do agree that it is understanding that they don't I do think that you do have a point that it is going to be a slippery slope if they ever specifically state what unique items can drop. I do think that over a period of time and over season 2 or season 3, we might find a guide that says what uniques can drop in World Tier 3 versus World Tier 4.
To touch on something real quick as well, we have a comment from one of the viewers, Zyodrade, Okari, who played the beta with me a lot as well and played, I believe, with both of us a little bit. I did a lot of testing with him. He mentioned, after doing it myself, it's a pretty grindy aspect. It's important to note that regular legendaries only go to 60, sacred go to 70, and ancestral 70 plus. It's also important to understand that they have chances to drop under your current level. For example, a sacred dropped at 67 when you're 70. You can be level 100 and get a level 65 sacred, so now not only are you looking for the item, you're looking for the item with the stats, the level, and the type.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about a moment ago when I was telling you about the scaling thing. Or I was telling you before about the scaling. That's what I was bringing up. Was that the zone level versus the mob level, and that right there goes to show that the drop is from zone and um, not from mob. So the sacred dropping at level 67 while you're 70 is sacred. That is true. It can drop because you're in World Tier 3 and you're doing all that stuff and you're doing in-game content. I think that if we were to touch a little bit on that sacred drop idea and the ancestral drop idea, I think that, as I said before, the dynamic scaling is very, very impactful, but I think that it being unlocked when you complete the campaign is what should have been done, and having the zones scale to your level and not just the mobs. Because the zone level matters, the mobs matter because they drop a certain amount of items, or they have a higher chance to drop items, which is really really cool, honestly. So you would kill undead for more like shields and bone items and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty cool. But like it is daunting to think about that your grind. Here's the other thing too: is like they're saying they want 100 to 150 hours to go from 1 to 100, 100 to 150 hours. During that time, they want you to grind for your gear. Once you get all your gear, that character's complete. What are you gonna do with that character? So I get where they're coming from with that. They want to have some type of replayability for that character, and I feel that adding in sacred and ancestral items is going to add to the level of replayability for that character until you get your best in slot items. And some builds rely heavily on some items or even uniques to be impactful. And if what they're saying is true, that regular legendaries only go to level 60, wouldn't it be more interesting and also worrisome if they make it to where legendaries stop working at 70 unless they're sacred? Because that, if they do that, then it's even more limiting to the player, because I would use level 60 legendaries that are the proper legendaries that I need until I get that legendary as ancestral or even higher, or sacred or even higher, because until that point, I need those legendaries for my build to work. So,
So I think that's a lot to unpack, but what I will say is that I think that that's getting into a little bit of the realm of like stuff that they don't want to do. They have showed us that they want to make the game as accessible as possible. So I don't think they're going to limit sacreds, or they're going to limit regular legendaries or sacreds to a certain level point. Like, Zyodrade said, they are limited by a drop point, but I don't think they'll limit them based on the level. I can't see that happening even going forward in seasons, because it could make the game more artificially better in certain ways. We've seen that a lot with like a lot of people that play hardcore World of Warcraft, and they are capped to a certain level. Like I believe in the, just as an example, people have capped themselves to like level 22. So you have to find out what the best gear is at that level, all the best factors, more side quests or different things that give better options. And, looking at that comparison, I think that's a type of gameplay that can be fun for a lot of players, and players will do self-imposed challenges just in softcore or hardcore in that way. But I don't think the game wants to do that themselves, because then that's making it too limited and putting people into a box, and it doesn't seem like they want to do that at all. Um, I do think though that it's going to be very important for people to keep all their legendaries while they're leveling. Very important. I would tell for everybody here and just anybody in general, keep any legendary you get, because if you could go back and use that legendary at the occultist, even if it's going to be less power, some powers are static powers across the whole game. And if they are static, or if the level percentage doesn't matter that much and you just need the percentage of the power, then you want to keep that. So even a legendary at level 10 can be worth it at level 100. So I totally agree that you're going to need some for your build. You'll want to keep them always as a staple. And um, it's going to be very annoying to try to have to farm out a higher level percentage or damage, static damage modifier. Like I remember on the Barbarian, I thought I didn't get a chance to do this during the beta, but I was thinking about making a kick build, and the kick build seemed really good because the legendary effect on a two-hander had like a static damage range of like somewhere between the 700s all the way up to 1,000, and then you could get multipliers on top of that. And that's another reason why Barbarian was so good, is not just because it had multiplicative damage boost, but you had static numbers on top of that, which just made it go wild. um and
Now, that's something I want to touch on
yeah.
that too, real quick. You brought up the whole saving the unique items. I actually made a video about this, or not unique, but legendary items. I made a video about this that if I get an item, it says ancestral 70 plus. If I get an item at level 100 that is not ancestral and is not sacred, because it says sacred items can drop. It doesn't say that they do drop. It says they can drop. So if I get a level
Yeah.
100 non-sacred, non-ancestral, I am going to be able to give that to you, and then you're able to take that level 10 legendary affix, extract it, take the legendary imprint, and imprint it onto that level 100 item, and now it's a level 10 item with level 100 stats. Now, I don't know how they're going to work around that, but that's a very interesting point to bring up because I made a video regarding that, and I had a friend of mine who had just started Diablo 4. He wanted to play Barbarian. So we went over to the red boss, and I killed him for us. And because loot is unique to person, I got a mace, he got a mace. He already had a legendary aspect that he already had found. He extracted that aspect and imprinted it onto the level 35 weapon and used it at level 4 or level 5 or whatever it was. And he was just
Yeah.
one-shotting everything. Like, it is absolutely
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, I remember us going over that and doing that, and I remember showing other people that as well. That's a little concerning. I think it's cool that that's possible, and obviously, I think that Blizzard is encouraging that though a little bit because Mike Ybarra, the president of Blizzard, shared out the Diablo map on his Twitter. He posted about how you can get the level 35 weapon from the boss, and I don't know if he talked about how to use it in that context, but he at the very bare minimum was implying that hey, you could get these items and there is a way to use them. So if the president of Blizzard is posting about that kind of stuff, then it makes me think that they are expecting that sort of behavior and things to happen, which I don't think is necessarily bad for the game. I think it's a good thing because, if we look at Diablo 3, people level up already incredibly fast, and some people would like a slower leveling process overall for leveling to mean more. I'm included in that. But if they want to keep it more in line with 3, or want people to be able to have the option to level up really fast through the campaign or just farming, these sorts of areas and bosses are good. And I think that's also the point of the unique bosses, is knowing where a certain drop is, being able to get that drop and then modify that drop to be a good leveling item, or in whichever way you wish to use it.
Yes. And I do want to bring up something else regarding that too, real quick. If they don't snip that in the bud, which honestly it is not that bad of a thing. If they do not snip that thing in the bud, it's fine because at the end of the day, if they leave it how it is, that allows me as your friend. I go play softcore, you play hardcore, whatever. I am able to go on softcore, and I'm able to go farm out these items because I'm farming them for myself. I'm able to take these blues and yellows that I no longer care about, I no longer need, and give them to you to help you level up faster and more efficiently to come play with me. I think that allowing me to help out my friends is a very, very good thing. And allowing us to do that is very, very big because for you to even use that, you have to have a legendary that you can extract and imprint it onto it in the first place. And that in of itself is already putting a restriction on it, which is I think all the restriction enough that it needs. It doesn't need to have any more restrictions than that. You have to have a legendary aspect that you can extract and imprint it onto the item. So I don't see a point in a world where we're not able to do that ever. And that's what we'll talk about items later, but that's basically what I think about that. And we only got to the first point of World Tier 3, just so we're clear.
Yeah, well,
There's
yeah,
three more
like
points.
we're oh goodness, yeah, we've been going over World Tier 3. Like, it's a good thing Gold didn't take us too long. Gold was actually pretty quick to talk about. Gold was good. Drops were good. We touched on drops a little bit, but not a lot. You know,
Yeah.
we've just gone over Sacred's Uniques. We haven't even gone over Sigils, Nightmare Dungeons. We've talked about Hell Tides a little bit. Not really much champion monsters yet.
Or
And we
even
haven't even talked
details.
about resistances.
Yeah.
And resistances is actually what I want to talk about the most.
Same, same, same.
Oh boy.
Because the resistance to overcome is going to transcend from World Tier 3 to World Tier 4 in our
And we've
conversation.
even seen resistances go like, oh man, dude, I'm pretty sure we can do a whole episode on resistances because like I did so much extensive resistance testing in the beta from the world boss, from the elixirs, from gear. Oh my goodness, like people are undervaluing how good resist is for sure. And as a person that plans on playing hardcore and trying to, go for a hardcore world first as fast as possible, resistances, like the two biggest things I can tell anybody is resistances and movement speed in their current state are busted. Actually busted. Like, I'm not playing a rogue, but I would put my money on a rogue hitting world first 100 in hardcore if they're running a full resist build, dodge build with movement speed, because it is just insane. Like, they also have baked in immunity slash just baked in, well, yeah, just baked in immunity into the way that a lot of their spells are. But that's a tangent. I'll talk about that later. I did want to talk about real quick though some things more that were in the chat. From Zydrade. He posted about the mobs scale to your level only if you're at the minimum level for that tier. Otherwise, they will be above your level. He also mentioned, in addition to this, strongholds are a fixed level. We did talk about how they were a fixed level, but your first point about the tier, we actually didn't talk about. So that's a really good note to add in.
I actually did cover that. Remember I told you before that um, when we started out and we were level 1, the Act 2 zone where you have to go to Glen, that zone was like level 30, level 40-ish area, and then as you leveled up, it slowly decreased in level. Remember I said that?
Oh, yes, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I did say
Yeah,
that,
I
and
I
it
didn't
slowly.
notice that. I didn't notice that actually because I remember us trying to get into the other zones. I remember for like sitting there for like multiple hours trying to bug our way into the other zones, or using clever use of game mechanics, and we just couldn't get ourselves in there. You want to know what? I felt like maybe we could have, like, so. I know that there was a wall set up for you to not be able to get into those zones, but I felt like we couldn't do it mainly because of server lag. Because we were
uh,
min-maxing the hell out of our movement speed in
there
trying to
was
use movement speed in conjunction with our other class abilities to get through.
So I actually got really close. There's nothing in those zones. Nothing. Like when I got like I actually discovered a zone, and that's how far I got into that zone. I actually discovered it on the map. It actually showed up, but there was nothing there. It was void of everything.
Oh, okay,
There was
wow. Okay,
nothing
that
there.
makes sense. Yeah, well, they probably did that on purpose because I
Yeah.
bet you they did that on purpose after week one. Because if you remember at the end of the week one beta, people were able to stay online for like up to 50 hours after the servers went down if they didn't close their games. And uh, yeah, obviously, you were only able to fight what was in the world or what would have repopulated in your world over time. But there was definitely people that probably off screen recorded or bugged their way into those zones and were just exploring. I have no doubt in my mind that somebody found a way to get into one of those zones, and we just haven't seen the footage.
Yeah, and to touch on a little bit more too, real quick regarding the scaling of the zones, I think that when, like I was talking about earlier, when we did stronghold, the stronghold said level 15, and they're supposed to be static. However, those mobs, when I moused over them, said 25. So the zone itself was 25, yes, but the mobs themselves in the stronghold scaled to my level. The boss may have not scaled to my level because, again, like I said, I just messed up and stood in the ice and I died. But he wasn't really hurting me that badly, so he could have not scaled to 25. He could have been scaled to just 15 flat. But it's still an issue that I don't know. I don't like the strong. I like strongholds being static. I do. I like unique champion mobs being static. That's really cool. Also, I don't like how it is the zone scaled levels versus everything else. Because I feel that if I go to World Tier 3 and I go do Strongholds, they should scale to my level. It should be level 50 across the board until I start leveling up. And we don't know if the Stronghold is going to scale to us in World Tier 3, or is it going to just be a base level 50 or whatever. So that'd be very interesting to find out. And we're done with sacred items, we're done with unique items now. We've already had our discussion regarding that because you can't extract unique powers anyways. It was just an idea of like uniques dropping in World Tier 3 or any earlier. You touched on those ones that drop earlier on that are flavor text. Sacred items, as we saw earlier, also can only use up legendaries up to level 70 and stuff like that, which is going to be intriguing to see. Nightmare sigils that can drop that unseal nightmare dungeons. I feel that in this aspect of itself, that nightmare dungeons should be, because they already canceled resetting dungeons. You can no longer reset dungeons. Like, I don't know if you read that or not,
Yeah,
but you can no longer
yeah,
reset dungeons. So nightmare sigils, I feel, should not drop for the dungeon that you are in. I think you had a discussion before already. The nightmare sigils should not drop for the dungeons that you are in, and it should drop for dungeons within that zone, or even not for that zone entirely. I feel that having it to where you have to go out and explore the world is really cool, and I think that if you complete Act 1 dungeons, the Nightmare Sigils from Act 1 should be Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, Act 5. There should be no Act 1 dungeons for that dungeon pull at all. I think all of Act 1 dungeons should drop Nightmare Sigils only for Act 2 through 5. Act 2 dungeons should only drop Nightmare Sigils for Act 1, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Because then that requires you to go do other things in the game instead of just farming the same dungeon over and over, which you can't do anymore now anyways because it's, you can't reset dungeon. But I think that'd be really cool. It'd allow us to explore more dungeons and a wider variety of dungeons instead of just limiting yourselves to farming the one dungeon over and over and over and over again. Like, let's look at Diablo 2, for example. You only went back and farmed the Travincal over and over again to fight, the people there, what kind of the council. You went there to fight the council
yeah.
people over and over again to farm them, and you'd kill them and you'd leave. You kill them and leave. You kill them and leave. You do the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that doing that is boring and repetitive, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's not good game design. I would agree that I don't think it's good per game design, and even if it is good game design from a perspective of consistency, it is not with the times. People don't want to have to do the same thing over and over again if they don't have to. If they want to, great, but they shouldn't have to do that. There should be more choice, and I think the whole theme with Diablo 4 is choices. I will also say though that I could agree that Nightmare Sizzles dropping in that way I think is good to more choice and also advance the game state. Uh, I also think that they put the limiter on resetting dungeons not just for the state of for the state. I think it is from a few standpoints.
Leveling.
From a technical, I think. Say again.
Leveling.
Yeah, well, leveling. I think it's also from a technical standpoint, for the game because for example, if you're in a world zone, everything that you do in that world zone, all the Lilith shrines that you find, effects of that nature, any kind of shrines in general that you find, and then you want to take into a dungeon, or if you know it's there, if you are, let's say, farming said dungeon and you're in a party, it can be very abusable with other players if you find a certain shrine or whatever near a dungeon to go back to town, grab the shrine, go back in, back and forth. And I don't think they want to promote that type of gameplay where players are having to just bait out shrines and stuff, because we had a lot of that in Diablo 3. Like, when you got to very end game Diablo 3 GRs, you're just either you're either getting to where your build is so consistent that it doesn't matter what pops up, or you're fishing for that perfect rift with a certain type of monsters or certain type of shrines, or both. And you even saw that in 4-man parties or even 2-man parties. And I would do this a lot myself, where like, hey, I know maybe I can't be helpful in this scenario, but what I can do is I can run ahead and look for a shrine and say, hey, we got this. And I won't touch on shrines right now that much because that's a whole different topic. They were totally different than Diablo 3. But I think that is, as an example, one of the things that they probably thought about a bit with the resetting of dungeons and then the world, and both of those conjoined. And then also from a standpoint of a technical standpoint, it probably adds a lot to the server load and server lag if you got so many people trying to reset dungeons over and over and over again, like Path to Exile allows. But you got to remember, Path to Exile has a lot less players. Like, for example, PoE is a great game, but at their peak on this launch, I believe Chris Wilson talked about how they had 350,000 or 360,000 concurrent players at the launch, which is great. But we know just over the weekend for Diablo, there was easily over 1 million, and I think 2 million overall. So, I mean, that's at the bare minimum 5 times more, and or at the bare minimum 3 times more, and up to 6 times more just in the beta, not even the launch. So, crazy to think, and I'm sure the launch is going to be insane.
Yeah. I think honestly, a lot more people than they expected actually bought the pre-purchase for the early access. I'm pretty sure they were not prepared for as many people.
Oh yeah, I had friends that saw me playing and they were like, and they didn't even plan on playing, but then they were like, "Wait, early access? Let me get in that." And I
Yeah.
had friends that got in just to get that early access. Then, well, to get the early access for the beta, or to get the early access for the first 4 days, because this is like a side tangent, but a lot of players will think, "Oh, hey, I don't need to buy the collector's edition or whatever else to get the first 4 days." If you are looking right into the camera right now, if you're a serious Diablo player, you need to buy the collector's edition. The 4-day head start is huge. Think about this with any new game that comes out. Like, some people will be like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait and see what the game's like in a week, make sure there's no bugs, whatever else." Like, if you start playing the game in a week, you get a good item. Me, nobody else, Nas here, Steve, whoever I know, none of us care because we've been playing the game for a week already. Everybody that's been playing the game for a week already, nobody cares. You're not relevant in that standpoint. I'm just gonna say that flat out personally, that it's just a true fact. And
I
you probably,
I strongly disagree with you there. So
well, it's hard to be relevant if you're starting the game 4 days after all of us. Like,
here's a discussion regarding
like
that.
you just can't be serious, right? Like, if there's no server issues and you say to me that you have a goal like me or you where you want to hit 100 world first or do something early on, like, you could do all the testing and stuff, but there's no way you could be a serious type of racer if you want to or competitor if you want to if you don't want to start the 4 days early. It doesn't make any logical sense.
So I have something to say about that real quick. As much as I agree with you that the 4-day early start is massive, I disagree with you that you need to have it because it is a 4-day early start on what is presented as a finished build, as they put it. And if you read the patch notes, and they actually state in the patch notes, I'm going to try and find it. I don't know if I'm going to find it before we finish, but it states that the patch notes and stuff like that will come live on June 5th. So for the first 4 days, we are either going to have bugs, we're going to have latency issues, we're going to have server issues, we're going to have items not dropping properly, we're going to have stuff like that happening. Because the patch notes are reads, goes live June 5th. Does not say early access players June 1st. It does not say anywhere on that, anything like that. at all on the notes.
Correct.
So
But I will say with that though, even though we aren't getting any of those patch notes necessarily, um, it's basically like a third, like we're like yes, it's early launch, but another way to look at it is the third beta test, and it's a third beta test where your character doesn't get wiped. So anything you do in those first 4 days is insane. Like, I believe the fastest speed run to level 25 wasn't it just over an hour or under an hour with a four-man
uh,
party?
25, I think it was. Oh, what happened to my camera?
I know it was longer than 40 minutes. I know it
I
was
think it was
longer
like
than 45 minutes. I think it was like 54 minutes.
might be. Am I green on your screen?
You're good now.
Hmm, that's interesting. But yeah, so I think that relevancy is relevant to how you play the game. I
Yeah,
think
how
that
you play the game. I'm just, and that's why I preface like, if you want to play the game in some sort of capacity where you want to be a competitor, I think that it is vital that you get the head start. And also, if you just care about being relevant in games with most other players just buy the normal game. Honestly, you can wait a week, you can wait a month, you can wait probably until the season one starts, honestly. But if you want to do anything serious or want to be relevant with your friends, you probably want to get in there at the jump because that's usually when most players are going to start playing a game and having most fun. Great example. I haven't played much PoE. Your camera's going awry, Nas.
I'm
Uh,
aware. I might have to
you're the
disconnect and
green man
reconnect.
right now.
Yeah,
Um,
I might have to disconnect and reconnect real quick.
yeah, that's fine. I'll just continue on with this little tangent. Um, Actually, we'll move on to some questions from the stream real quick and some comments that people are making. So first I'll go back and read up the one thing that Zyodra had said about levels. Yes, he's 100% correct. Just because you're in the highest tier in level 100 doesn't mean you get sacred items. That's true. Um, you can get unique and sacred items as well. Also, we saw that in the beta, yeah, but also I believe to trade the items like level 100, they would have to be in your group at the time and drop similar to D3. This means if you get a drop in tier 4, unless you somehow carried a level 1 through all the capstone dungeons, you wouldn't be able to give them. That's actually incorrect. So there is certain rares and blue items or uncommons and rares, and I'm not sure about legendaries, but at least uncommons and rares that you could give to people regardless of if they were in your game and level.
Actually, to touch on
There
that real quick, that's incorrect also. You don't have to be in the game at all. I've given yellows that I had farmed out. Like I said, I had farmed out that yellow that I gave you, that weapon I gave you. I had farmed it out a long time ago and was saving it for my barbarian, and I just gave it to you. Yellows
okay.
are not limited. What they're talking about is last epoch. Last epoch in multiplayer, you have to be in the same map to trade that item. In Diablo 4, you don't have to be anything at all. You don't need to be in the
Well, I think
same
he was
line.
just referencing
Yeah,
D4 in its current
yeah,
state
yeah.
and talking about D3. I don't know if he's played last epoch, but yeah, in
And
last epoch it's different
And
too.
on Twitter, they also posted that it was a bug that legendaries were tradable. That was not supposed to happen.
Yes.
You're not supposed to be able to trade legendaries. And as I stated, was if I was to give you yellows, you need to find your own legendaries that have your level requirement to imprint onto those yellows to make them your level. And that's what I was talking about. Was yes, I think that there should be a limitation to it, but I don't think there should be a steep limitation to it because limiting your availability to trade limits the multiplayer aspect of Diablo, and that is a massive downfall of Diablo 3. Was that you were not able to trade a lot of gear. You can trade legendaries and stuff like that and sets only if you're in the same party, and that's what a lot of people had issues with. Was in Diablo 2, you could just get legendaries and all that and uniques and stuff like that, and you're able to trade them with other players no matter what. Same with sets, and you're able to trade them with other players, and that made it a very very big success. Was because you're able to trade freely. Where Diablo 4, you're not supposed to be able to trade legendaries at all. Like, they don't want that happening, or uniques. You're not supposed to be happening. But being able to trade yellows allows us to put some type of weight to items and also gems. Like Elder here can vouch for me. I had like 40 to 50 of every single gem it didn't matter to me. Like I had so many gems. He asked for a gem. I
Yeah,
said,
I
"Oh,
did too.
I got you,
Yeah.
homie." Like he's like, "Yo, I need this gem," and I was like, "All right, I got you. Let me give you this." So I just gave him a
That's going to
gem.
be another crazy thing to talk about too eventually is trades, gems, the way that
Yeah.
these systems are working.
And
But Zajare just said
oh,
as well,
they
the
they
conversation was about, you go,
the
sorry.
gyms they added a gym slot too for UI. That's a discussion too.
Oh, that's, yeah, well, that's
That
going to
I'm
be the
so
thing
happy
to
about
talk about
that.
when we get
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
UI. Yeah. Um, Zajare is saying, yeah, the conversation was about legendaries, ancestral, and sacred, and they said that they did play in the confidential end game. So they have that experience, so that's good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's see here. Moving on next. Also for items dropping, I believe the levels are also based on the tier. A level 100 can't go into a tier 1 and
correct.
get level 100 items.
They
Oh,
max is
yeah.
50. Max is 50.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Let's see what else. You can scrap sigils into dust and buy higher sigils using the lower sigils. Um, I haven't seen anything about that, but if you have info on that, then alrighty. I mean, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Talking about nightmare sigils, right?
Nightmare sigils, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That'd be pretty cool.
I would assume so because that's the only sigils that we've talked about.
Yeah. So we talked about nightmare sigils and nightmare dungeons, and we talked about it'd be cool if they did it on different acts from dungeons. So if you did Act 1, you got Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, Act 5. Or at least just a different dungeon. I don't feel like going into that dungeon to try and get that sigil is is a good play, because that means you can only do that one dungeon once until it resets by itself automatically. And that's the other thing too, is they didn't talk on how long it takes for the dungeon to reset by itself. So it could be that it's an hour reset. It could be 10 minutes. And if it is a 1 hour reset, then that just feels really, really bad because you want to do that dungeon on a Nightmare dungeon. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's like so they didn't specify, but I think the reason they didn't specify because I feel like it was implied that within the game itself it will never reset. But if you make a new game, then it will because if you close your game, start a new game, you're in a new world zone. You're in a new state from the one that you were just previously in. Different events are going to spawn, different monsters will
So
spawn. It's like when we
zoning.
were logging, yes, for zoning
Okay, so
itself.
that's what you're saying. So basically, if I go
In
complete
the
a dungeon,
zonings in the zoning as far as we know currently, zoning is affected by the dungeons, and what makes me believe this is that zones and dungeons have the same ID for shrines and other things in the world that are connected to that dungeon in said zone.
okay. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see,
And
honestly.
we saw that in our own gameplay, but you also see that in some of the top speedrunners gameplay from the beta, where you see them find a shrine, none of them touch the shrine, they find a dungeon that's nearby, boom, they get to a boss or they get to a part in the dungeon where they have everything piled up together, run out, grab the shrine, zone back in, instant dead. They
Yeah,
just save themselves anywhere from 1 minute up to 5 minutes.
yeah. And that'd be very interesting to see. I think that Nightmare Dungeons, in my opinion, you should not be allowed to zone out of. I think if you zone out of it, it should just automatically close. That's how it should be. Nightmare Dungeons should be a one-time entrance. You can die as many times as you want inside the dungeon, but the moment you leave the dungeon, it should just close.
Oh, we have another comment from Zydrate as well. Yes, the occultist has a salvage option. You can use the currency to buy higher sigils, and the sigils are based on the world tier. There are multiple difficulties in the world tier. Also,
Oh,
when I was using sigils, I was just able to do the same dungeon over and over, but keep in mind it was all luck based because the sigil opened a random dungeon.
oh,
So,
okay.
well, that's good. So, hmm.
That means that you can just do whatever dungeon you want to and just use a sigil and it just opens a random dungeon.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
actually
Yeah,
so. That's basically the point that I was making before about
yeah. There you
how it should
go.
just be a random dungeon.
I mean, some people would like if it was more specific, so you
Yeah.
could choose which dungeon. Like, I think if it was specific, or maybe if they made it like the lower level sigils are random, but if you get a higher level sigil, or maybe a certain type of rare sigil or a unique sigil, then you could choose whichever dungeon you wished.
So here's
That'd
something.
be interesting.
Here's something I want to tax you onto that actually. I think that if they do that and they allow you to choose what specific dungeon you want to do, it should cost more to choose specific dungeon. And upon choosing the specific dungeon, it should add anywhere from 2 to 5 additional affixes for difficulty for you choosing the specific dungeon, because you are choosing to bypass the randomness, and I think you should be punished for it. And I think that'd be a very, very intriguing concept. Now, I think we can get on topic of Nightmare Dungeons later when we get more into it and we have more information regarding it. Open to us, that is actually openly available and not just something that someone else is not supposed to be sharing with us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know at this point if you can or cannot. I mean, that's not on me.
uh,
I just say what is told to me. You know.
uh, don't close us down. But moving on to Helltides. Helltides being able to appear across Sanctuary. I think Helltides are very, very cool, and I think this loops into something that I want to talk about too about PvP. I'm only going to touch on the surface idea of that I have of PvP, not go into PvP. I think PvP can have its own discussion. I think PvP can have a long discussion between us, and has a lot of nuances. The fact that they allow immunity for the few seconds when you come out of dungeons and zoning into dungeons and waypoints is honestly really cool. I appreciate that. It matters a lot, especially in PvP. Whenever you zone out a dungeon, you don't want to have like a raid of 12 people just sitting there ready to kill you. That's really, really feels bad, especially in hardcore, which is where I want to talk about. I don't like the idea that in hardcore that world tiers should be zoned together at all, ever. I don't think World Tier 1 and World Tier 2 should ever be zoned together. I think World Tier 2 should have its own zoning, World Tier 1 should have its own zoning, same with World Tier 3, World Tier 4. And
I would agree with that.
I don't think that level 100s should be allowed to go back to World Tier 1 in PvP.
I would agree. But we
Like,
also don't know exactly how PvP is going to work, and what we do know is that there's going to be a very specific zone for PvP, and
yes.
that is not yeah, like to make that clear for everybody in the stream, that is not a zone on the map, not like one of the one two one not one of the 1 through 5 campaigns, but there is a specific zone or a zone within one of the campaign zones that is specific to PvP as far as we know currently.
That's called Fill the Strife, and it can happen. It's just an event, apparently, from my understanding. It's called the Fill the Strife, and you just go there, and it's an event that happens. And there will be Joe Schmo on hardcore, who plays hardcore all the time and just is having fun with it with his friends and family or whatever. And he just travels along, and like he's level 20, 30, and he happens to stumble upon the Fill the Strife. It happens to be happening where he's at. I don't like the idea that a level 100 could technically be in that field of strife to kill people in World Tier 1. That that is, I get that people are like, whatever, PvP, it's your choice, whatever, whatever. Some people just walk through that zone on accident. Like, it doesn't... honestly, the game itself is great. I have nothing really bad to say about Diablo 4. There's some nuances that I dislike here and there, but nothing really bad. Like, it's a great game. I suggest everyone get it and play it. But the idea that you don't have the option to opt in to PvP when you enter the field of strife, it's just automatic. You walk into the field of strife, you're immediately just PvP flagged.
But
And
the second you walk out of it, you're un-PvP flagged. So there
yes,
is the choice of not walking into it.
but
But then I would also say if it so
what I'm trying to say is
if it is just
poison
based
builds,
on
CCs, stuff like that can happen
yeah,
if you step
people
into it.
will just camp at the edge of zones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
people just
And
camp at the
that's
start of the entrance, and hopefully they're realizing that, and we see some things done with about that very quickly. If there already hasn't been things done about people camping at the beginning of a zone or something like that.
you know it's gonna
But
happen.
looking. Hmm?
You know it's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, we know what's gonna happen. But I mean, I would love to hope that maybe other people from other PvP teams have talked to them. Like, they do have really smart PvP team people at Blizzard that are with them still at higher levels or associates. Like, goodness, you have Holinka, you have
But
goodness,
yeah,
what is his
anyway,
name?
there's
Yeah,
a
there's other
discussion.
people.
There's a discussion
Yeah.
another time. All I'm trying to say is I don't think that sorry, we're supposed to be talking about Hell Hides, but it made me think of Field of Strife for a moment. I don't
Yeah.
think that they should allow. I think it should be limited to the level within that zone, and I don't like the idea that people can just go into Hell Ties and just kill people, because let's be real,
Uh,
You're playing
if
hardcore.
there have they clarified if there will or will not be scaling? Because the only thing they've
2
talked
days.
about is that there can be players, obviously, that'll be more geared than you, which is just the thing that'll happen. Did they talk about if it's static or dynamic or any kind of scaling?
So in 2 days, we should know more. In 2 days is
Okay.
the mega post, which is why I'm happy we got our podcast out today, so that way we can
Yeah.
discuss a lot more next week when we have time.
Yeah, we have
We hit.
speculations right
Yeah.
now, things like that. It'll be good to be like, oh,
So
hey, we called this, we didn't call this.
exactly, exactly. And then in the Hell Tides being able to appear across Sanctuary, I think that's going to be really, really cool. I like the idea of Hell Tides. I do think it's really a really neat idea. It's just like the Fields of Strife, which is why it made me think of Fields of Strife, is that it can just pop up around the world, all of around Sanctuary can just pop up, and it will just be there to be an event for you to go in and do. I feel like we kind of had a semi Hell Tide in the northern stronghold area, the level 30 zone that you're talking about earlier, that we were talking about earlier, the world event that was happening. I feel that was more or less like a Hell Tide, miniature Hell Tide. Is that how you felt?
Say that again.
Remember the northern stronghold that was level 25 that you had to go in there and kill the vampire dude all the way in the back?
Yes.
And when you killed that, you unlocked that stronghold area. When you did so, you got the fire that gave you the EXP buff. There was an event that would happen there sometimes. Do you remember that event?
Yes.
Do you think that that was a test of a Helltide?
Yes, it 100% was.
Okay.
I totally think it was.
That's what I was trying to say this entire time. I was like,
Like it has the same animations as we've seen from the videos of Helltides and everything.
okay. I just want to see if you felt the same way because, in my opinion, when it
Yeah.
says right here, Helltide's going to appear across Sanctuary in World Tier 3, because they didn't unlock World Tier 3 for us, they introduced instead a miniature Helltide in the northern area in Sanctuary for us in Act 1, which was a stronghold. And it being level 30 was kind of cool. I think that was a miniature
Yeah.
Helltide event, honestly, in my opinion. And I feel that
I think so too. I think most people would agree with that.
yeah, and how would you feel if Helltides were not static in location, but were completely random across all of Sanctuary? Do you
I
think
love that actually. That'd be beautiful for the game.
so? You say that, but here comes the issue now. Helltides are where you want to go and farm stuff, right? What if you open up your Sanctuary map and you see a Helltide starting all the way in the northern area, and you're like, you know what? Let me go ahead and just teleport there on the waypoint. Let me get on my horse and start riding there. By the time you get there, it's already closed down. Now you're looking for another Helltide to try and find and try and get to. If you knew the location of
What
where it was going to be, though, you could be there on time.
so that's something we don't know exactly. I don't believe about Helltides unless there's information from like people that played
Yeah,
in the
this is just thought.
confidential gameplay.
It's just thought, yeah.
Um, yeah. As far as we know right now, if they do work, if Helltide, like, well, there's also the world event and the dungeons. If the world event works on a timer, like we saw in Core Drago, up into the north, if they work on a timer, then everybody will know that within 30 minutes, like it was there, when it's going to spawn. And obviously, if you log in late, that's on yourself. I mean,
Yes.
there's going to be Discords, Twitter posts, and all kinds of places that post about when those events are happening. So, I mean, you'll just have to watch and see when they're up. But I'm sure, I would guess, based on the work that Blizzard does with other games and, how they currently are in the game, that I would imagine that there's going to be one of those events going on in each zone at least at some time. Like, I'd be very perplexed to find out that there's at least not one of those events going on in the zone at any given time. And as we know, like, the zones have many teleporters. So I don't think with your horse you're gonna have a problem getting to any zone unless you're logging in with like a minute left, and then you're just like, I need to get there fast.
Yeah! Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. I was asking you, do you think
You're,
it'd be.
you're 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 gonna be spamming his zone chat. Don't attack the boss. Don't attack the boss.
So that's the thing that's what I was talking about just now. Is it being static, which is what you just brought up, it being static and, then it's just on you. Or it being random. Time and place. It just happens randomly. That's the same thing with Fields of Strife. I think Fields of Strife and Helltides should be locked to locations and time to allow us to go do it. However, that then makes it feel like it's a chore. You're about to do this dungeon, and you're like, this Helltide's about to start in 10 minutes. I'm gonna go do this dungeon real quick. You go finish the dungeon. You go clear your inventory, and you go do the hell tide. Then you go do some dungeons. You're like, the hell tide's gonna come soon. I'm gonna go do this hell tide. So then it becomes a chore to do this and that, this and that, this and that. Where instead of it feeling like it being a random event, like your dungeon random events can happen, where you can have the butcher and stuff like that. Sorry guys, if you didn't play the game, you can get the butcher in your dungeon. But yeah, so like Helltide's being random is kind of cool, and it being stationary and static feels like it's a chore now. But at the same time, it feels like you can actually make it to those on time and get the loot, get the rewards, have fun with the Helltide, and actually be a part of the Helltide instead of just being there as it finishes up and missing it. So I think I'm cool with either way, honestly. There's pros and cons to both. Um, but honestly, I think about what to do. I'm going to enjoy the game no matter what. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Um,
Um,
I'll post about what's called as far as any information that we get that cannot be confirmed at this time. Free to share it, but I'll try not to share that stuff too much because we don't know if it's confirmed or not confirmed. Nas, I'll let you know about it. But yeah, I don't want to talk about too many like speculation, spoilery things just yet. Unless we have like some kind of evidence from any kind of developer or any kind of post. Oh, I was gonna ask you, Nas, did you read the Game Informer article that came out last week? Game Informer had their own article that went up on Game Informer about Diablo 4. It was an exclusive.
I did not read it.
Okay, you should definitely check out that when you can. I also at some point wanted to talk about very specific things that different people in the Diablo community, the different developers, have been talking about on Twitter. Like obviously, everybody most likely probably knows about the things that Rada Ferguson, Mike Ibarra, or Adam have been posting. Adam Fletcher have been posting about on Twitter. But a lot of the Diablo developers or people that work on art give us a lot of hints into what we're going to see in the world or see in different zones, and I think that's cool speculation to see since it can be or even is in certain ways concrete evidence. Like you know David A. Rodriguez is the associate creative director on Diablo 4, and he's a director on Diablo 4, but he deals mostly with the narrative, or the world. Um, so I asked him, as you saw, I believe it was last week or the week before, about the types of like fauna or animals we'll see in the world. And I honestly wasn't trying to do it to bait him. I just generally was curious. But he was like, he posted back. He's like clever, and he posted a picture of the sheep like looking up in the air. And like, at first I was really like, I wasn't trying to be,
Malicious, yeah.
facetious or whatever. But the more I think about it, the more it made me look into like the things that they post, and it made me speculate. Okay, what have all these artists been posting? What have all these story people been posting about it? What can we extrapolate from what their posts are on social media? And also, what can we find out potentially about the way that they are as people? Because, if we look at somebody that's a director, they're at the top level. They influence the game on such a level that what they post, what they say, what they do really matters. And what they tell us about themselves gives us a peer view into what we can expect coming into Diablo 4. Some people like Rod Ferguson, very public, has always been kind of very public. We, know the type of person he is and the things that he posts and what he stands for, what he believes in. But some of these other people, we don't have that information just yet. So it's really cool to look into and see the kind of view that they give us. One second, a phone call.
So while he's on that phone call, I do agree with him on that. Like being able to look at the artist's work and see everything that they do, and also like trying to extrapolate what they're trying to say in Twitter posts and all the other posts and forums and Wowhead, if they have interviews with them. It's very, very, nitpicky with the wording, and I get that a lot. Like it's the same thing with I hate to go way off topic here, but there's one specific actor who accidentally gives away a lot of stuff on complete accident, just because he responds to the question and then he's like, "Uh oh," and there's a very 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 famous one of that, and that is in Spider-Man, when they're doing an interview and he accidentally just gives away an entire scene that he was supposed to give away, and it just happens. And, and it's
Hey Nas, I'll be
they're
right
humans.
back.
Yep, and there's humans. So to touch a little bit more on the health ties of hearing across the sanctuary and stuff like that, it'd be really cool. And PvP areas would be really cool too to know about more. And I feel like that PvP discussion can happen a lot more on the next another day because it feels like there's gonna be a lot of discussion about PvP, PvP scaling, PvP abilities, CCs, CC breaks, unstoppable versus immune, constant procs, all this and all that. It's gonna be really interesting to cover that. So we're going to discuss about champion monsters with damage resistance auras can appear. We've seen this across already in Diablo 2. Diablo 2 had mobs that had resistance auras and also immune to certain abilities and affixes. So there was physical immune, magic immune, all that stuff. That was so bad when they reintroduced Diablo 2 Resurrected that they had introduced new charms that would actually remove immunity to a certain thing. And it was very interesting to see that because when they introduce those charms, they have a slight negative effect to them, but it allowed you to actually kill mobs that you previously couldn't kill. And it was very important for you to have those items because that's the only way you could actually, destroy those mobs is by being able to destroy through their immunity. And I think that the most interesting part about it all would be that, oh wow, it's frozen. On his stream, anyways. On his stream, not my stream. But yeah, it'd be very interesting to see that they introduce something similar to that, to where you're able to shred the resistance of mobs with your abilities as charms. I'm not saying they should. I don't like the idea of charms. I don't like having my inventory flooded with charms. I don't like my inventory being flooded at all. This entire UI discussion, or yeah, UI discussion that I would have to have another time, another day. But honestly, personally, for me, I don't like the idea of having to have to carry your charms. I like being able to pick up items and look at them and sell them. So champion monsters with damage resistance auras can appear. That's pretty cool. Entities are more formidable. In World Tier 2, it states they are more challenging. In World Tier 3, it states they are more formidable. That suggests that instead of having the more health and more damage and more resistances, they're going to have more abilities and stuff like that, and also have possibly additional 1-2 affixes, which would be really interesting to see. And them giving 100% increased XP instead of just 20% is pretty massive. That makes the monsters actually worth killing. I'm not saying they weren't worth killing before, but now they're actually worth killing for XP, where before they were not, in my opinion, worth killing for XP at all. They drop 15% more gold. That 15% gold is across the board. No matter what difficulty you're on, it's always going to be 15% gold. It will never change. It is static across the way, sadly. But I do appreciate that they are staying true to one thing at least, and that is just the gold gain from mobs is complete trash. Um, I do think that, as we were talking about earlier about gold and how it appears to be, is that it'll scale to the monster level, and hopefully to the difficulty also. At level 25, you can't really tell the difference in gold from World Tier 1 and World Tier 2. From mobs, anyways, it was not that big of a difference. The range of gold drop was so massive already from World Tier 1 and or so massive from like just base to high end. So, or low end to high end for the base drop value of gold. So like if you kill one mob, he can drop anywhere from like 5 gold to 30 gold. And I never really noticed 15% more gold unless of course I hit the high end. And so it was just normalized. You had a little bit higher average on World Tier 2 versus World Tier 1, so it wasn't really that much worth it to me. Monsters overcome 20% resistance. This is the one that he and I want to talk about a lot. So I will not cover this too much right now, but I will say that it overcoming 20% resistance is pretty big. Allowing your character to build up into armor, and armor counting as resistance and physical resistance as base armor is pretty massive. And it's a very interesting change from the previous Diablo games to this game. I am interested in seeing that they have a cap or even a soft cap of resistances, and armor because in beta I was able to hit 96% damage reduction with armor. That is ridiculous. You should not be able to hit that high. I was taking almost no damage from melee attacks from anything. Even bosses were just tickling me. And I don't think that there's a point in time that you should ever be able to just get that high on physical resistances through armor, and then also have additional resistances through all your actual like base res. I don't think that having that is a good mechanic. So them being able to overcome 20% is pretty massive to allow these monsters to become more formidable, as they put it. That then moves us on to World Tier 4, where ancestral items and more unique items can drop. We've already discussed this already in hindsight. We've already discussed this all,
And back.
so welcome back. There's not much we really need to discuss regarding this, other than you have to unlock it by completing Fallen Temple Capstone Dungeon in Northeastern Dry Steppes in World Tier 3 Nightmare. Also, just so you know, Jordan, if you can, please click on Discord. It is frozen with me looking at my phone and you staring at the camera. Keep
Okay.
in mind, it scales based on your level 2. Lower levels will be able to achieve higher percentages. Exactly. And that's what I was talking
Hmm.
about just now, too. Like,
Why is that happening?
I think that armor is going to be so important due to that, too. Like, armor scales from armor and resistances. So you gain armor as res, and that is so much. And yeah, there you go. You got it to work now. It really
Okay. Oh
sucks.
no, it was because I had it. So like, you know how you could label the pop out as a pin?
Yeah.
Apparently it got minimized, so it minimized the sound whatever we had up there.
Ah, okay. But yeah, so I think that's going to be very intriguing. And again, World Tier 4, monsters become more fearsome. And nice to meet you, I'm Frank. Hello there, Pando. Um, but uh, but yeah, so like it becomes very interesting to see that. And then on top of that, you get to the point to where you have monsters that give 200% increased XP, which you already had 100% from previously. And again, monsters drop 15% more gold. Again, 15% gold is across the board. It is no increase at all. It's just 15% across the board. Monsters overcome 40% resistance. This is probably talking about armor and resistances to elements. And as I said before, he and I want to talk about this a lot. I think having armor is going to be very, very important. Having a high base value armor value is going to be very, very important along with HP, and that in there instills a layer of defense that you want to run no matter what build you're running. So you're gonna want to have gear that has some type of high-end armor base and has some type of way to give you resistances if you're able to do that. I'm pretty sure you're gonna socket your rings and amulet with all res from diamonds, no matter what you build, no matter what way you go. Honestly, it's just too much. It's too important. So I was just talking about this actually just a moment ago before you came back. Was about the armor scaling and armor stacking that I did in beta with the percent increased armor for
Yeah.
the legendary. And I was talking about how that's going to be a very important aspect to have on your gear going into World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 because it's going to give you a massive layer of defense.
I'm just switching up my music real quick. I've been listening to that lo-fi one for a while. It's not bad, but I'm gonna throw in that Diablo 2.
Going to OG, huh?
Yeah.
Alright, alright. So, what is your opinion of monsters overcoming a percentage of your resistances? Do you think it should be a flat or do you think it should be multiplicative? Like they should overtake a flat 40%.
It should be a flat 40%, and I think that's what they're implying is that it's a flat. It would be weird for it not to be because I think they're trying to follow the PoE notion of, like you get to X act and then resistances drop after said boss. I think they're just doing it a little differently. Obviously, with the world tier, you just go to this world tier, boom, your resistances are lowered. You need more resist if you care about resist.
So you don't think it's gonna be just like a flat 40% of all your resistances and all your defenses is just gone?
Yeah, it's gonna be a flat. Yeah,
No,
it's,
what I meant was
I,
like let's say you have 1,000 armor and I have 2,000 armor. You don't think it's going to remove 400 from you and 800 from me? It's just going to remove a 400 flat from you, 400 flat from me.
um, if we both have 1,000, yeah.
No, no, no. You have 1,000. I have 2,000.
Oh, okay.
If it's a flat
Um,
amount, if it's a flat amount, they take 400 from you and 400 from me.
well, it says percentage, doesn't it?
Overcome 40% resistances. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Overcome.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
so it's yeah, like it reads. I think it's gonna be read as written on that one. Overcomes 40% of your resist. So yeah, if you have 2,000, I have 1,000. It's gonna be 800 for you, 400 for me. Yeah.
See, that makes it even worse now to go for defensives then.
Well, I think it's also good to have limiters on defensives those too, because it makes the game not have the problems that Path to Exile already has had in the past, where like, don't get me wrong, I love blocking, I love stunning, other things like that, but we've ran into too many problems in the past with aura stackers or max block stackers or XYZ, also like effective health stackers, things of that nature. I'm sure they look at, PoE or other games, their own games in the past, and seeing what defensives are too strong or too powerful or what is okay. And the other thing too is there's going to be ways to overcome some of that resistance drop, such as elixirs. And we've only seen some of the early game elixirs so far, such as being able to get 5% cold resist or whatever resist it may be, and that's going to be overcoming the overcome that you're already getting. Basically, you're gaining back. So like if you're losing 40% resistance at world tier 4 overall, but you use that 5% cold resist, it's really only 35 cold resist. So you know that's pretty good. um
Yeah.
it's very good, actually. It's 1/8. That's very good.
Yeah, and I think that'd be very impactful for when you're doing farming. I think that having those elixirs and those potions are going to be very, very helpful. Um, I think we're basically done with world tier. I think it's really interesting. I do like the way the world tier is. Do you think that they should be inside world tier 4? That there should be levels of world tier 4, or no? Like, do you think it should be like torment level 1, torment level 2, torment level 3, torment level 4 inside of world
Well,
tier
you
4?
can't even get to world tier level 4 until you're at a certain level anyway.
Well, yeah, level 70 plus. What I'm
Yeah,
saying,
so I don't think that's needed. I think that's arbitrary.
you think so? You don't think having the additional like difficulty increase. So like let's say it's level 70 plus, level 80 plus, level 90 plus, and level 100 plus. Like basically you're guaranteed level 100 plus.
No,
Like
I think that's arbitrary, and I think if they want to do that, they should just add in another world tier.
so like World Tier 5
Yeah,
extreme or
exactly.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because like world tiers are just torments. It's just magic power. It's just torments. It's all it is. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Got another phone call.
uh I'm checking real quick. I think that was my sugar, actually. One sec.
Okay, I'll wait.
I have to get some to eat soon.
That's a weird, really weird name to call me, just so you know. But yeah,
uh,
so yeah, I think World Tiers were good. We talked about additional options for renown already. We talked about drops because that's what was included in this. We talked about quests because we included what was in this. Um, the only other things I want to talk about right now in this podcast that we have left currently, because we are almost at 2 hours, is going to be seasons and battle pass. I think seasons,
hmm.
honestly, we also covered uniques. I'm gonna cross it out right now. We also covered leveling.
I think we should talk more about the battle pass than seasons. I don't.
So seasons are three
I
months
don't.
long. Do you think that them limiting
Yeah.
themselves to 3 months long is honestly a good idea? Because I feel like that's going to make them
I think
work
it's a
really hard.
fantastic idea.
Okay,
I
hold
think it's
on.
fantastic.
Stop thinking about it as a player perspective, and think of it
I'm
as
not. I'm actually not. I'm
okay.
not.
Because from my player perspective, I love the idea of 3 seasons. However, in a working environment business perspective, I think doing a 3 month season is very very demanding of a company, and we as players expect it to be prim and proper. It needs to be good. If it has any bugs, we're going to be upset about it. It's just what's going to happen. It's what always happens.
Well, I think it depends on how competitive they plan on the seasons being. And I think it's also going to depend on if there's any rewards or events that go along with the seasons, or if they're going to do more of like a PoE thing where, along with seasons, there's a race where the race is something that by itself, or they're just going to allow players to do their own community events, which I think they would. But I think that's the direction that they want to go, looking at how they already handled Warcraft, unless they really think about using their weight to make Diablo PvP really serious. I don't think we're going to see it be um any kind of notion where we need to worry about, oh man, the season's not super polished, well, it's just a dead game. Like that, I don't think that's going to be the case. And I think also if you look at the experts they have at Blizzard with making money and obviously the things that they're doing, there's certain decisions and options that have already been implemented in the game that are just there to make money because they know players will buy it and um they'll get that money. They'll get that bag. And
So,
I don't think that is I think seasons being 3 months is a very good decision. For them as a company, for money wise, for the developers and the people that have to work there, it's definitely a heavy load. Nobody's going to deny that. It's a heavy load, 3 month season compared to how we have seasons currently in Diablo 3 or even ladders in Diablo 2 still that last for 6 months or a year or even sometimes more. So that's a lot.
so
But it just depends on what content they want to show us within a season and how they want to use the seasons. And also it depends on if they keep on keeping each season 3 months. We could see it where, hey, season 1 is 3 months, season 2 maybe is 3 months, but maybe they decide, okay, maybe we're going to do season 3 and season 4 longer, or maybe we just do season 3. It depends on if they want to have 4 seasons a year, or maybe they decide a little bit down the road what's going to be the difference. Like, I've heard a lot of developers and not just and other people in the space, like Riker and other people talk about it, where, like, nobody can give you a definite answer on what the game is going to be like in a year. Like, everybody would love to know what the game is going to be like in a year, but nobody fucking knows.
exactly, and that's what I'm talking about too, real quick. They've already announced that the season idea and the reason why they're doing 3 months is because it's going to expand on the story in some way. It's going to add a new mechanic to the game. If they do it at if they do it for 3 months, let's use their example, okay? 3 months is the season. They expect you to go from level 100 to level 100, level 1 to level 100, to take 100 to 150 hours. 3 months is 90 days. That means on average you need to play at least an hour and a half. I think it's an hour and a half almost that you need to play just to hit max level by the end of the season. And that's just casual ending. That's 1.5 hours a day. You get 90 days to hit max level.
On average, but if you're thinking about the type of people that play ARPGs, the type of people that play MMOs, and then knowing this is like an MMO ARPG, that is there. I don't think they're worried about that number at all because most people on average are probably going to be playing it for 2 hours a day.
Okay,
Most people.
that puts you at 180 hours in the entire thing. So basically, you get 30 hours to enjoy max level. I
Yeah,
don't think.
I think in my opinion, 2 hours is lowballing it for the average player that plays these types of games. On average, I think these type of players play usually at least 3 to 4 hours a day, and then on weekends even more. They're playing all day.
So
Like I know I like we have many friends that are like parents, fathers, have serious work, and they still find the time to play these games 3 to 6 hours a day. So it's definitely possible. I know many people that work from home that even work remote and they still get on in between their job whenever they have a break or free time and they're just farming quests or doing rifts or doing whatever they're doing.
yeah, touch on a little bit more too, just so we're a little bit more clear regarding that too. And what I'm trying to say is that is just base game. Every single season
Basically.
is going to tack on an additional thing, 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 additional thing, additional thing, additional thing, adding more and more time. So you're saying that they're on average doing this or that. Sure. But now you're talking on to this is base, then this is season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4, season 5, season 6, season 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all the way down the road. However long down the road. It's going to become this ginormous thing that you have to know all these previous season mechanics if they carry over, because some of them may not carry over, some of them may not be positive at all, they may not carry over. But
Yeah,
the story,
some will become core, some won't.
yeah, exactly. But the story itself is going to continue on, and that lies the issue that I have with it is that it is going to become so flooded with it being a 3 month season that the average Andy is going to complete the campaign, farm a little bit, do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, and then have like 8 different season affixes thrown at them. Let's be real. Let's look at PoE. I hate to bring up another RPG, but let's look at PoE. There is so much bloat from the previous seasons that the average Andy legitimately plays that game and is overwhelmed. Like we were talking about earlier about being overwhelmed, is severely overwhelmed. Not just with the passive tree system, but with every single league mechanic that comes out. Half people I play with now in PoE don't even know how to do the syndicate. They're like, okay, what's the point of doing this? And then just move on with their lives. They won't even touch it.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually the biggest problem with PoE, and hopefully Diablo 4 is very clear on it. Is what is the rewards that you could get from this? What are the rewards that you could get from doing this? Like, PoE doesn't do a very good job of explaining, okay, here's Syndicate, they explain that, but it'd be nice if they were like, this is what you could get from Syndicate. And I think that's what's important for people to realize if it's worth spending their time or not on it, because I think as a game developer, you really fail if I have to go watch a YouTube video if I should do this content or not.
Yeah, and not just that, but also it does really good explanation when it first comes out, and then they just throw it to the wayside at the end. And that's another issue in of itself too.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that in World of Warcraft in the past. Like, great example, Sanctum of Domination. They brought in those, like, weird gem tier sets that weren't really tier sets for one tier. And yes, they did tell us they were gonna, like, go to tier sets in the next tier. But it's like, why even do that then? Like, why you...
Exactly.
We have no clue how much development time you spent on this. But, like, you obviously used resources to make this. And it's like, that doesn't make us feel good as consumers and players that you are just getting rid of this thing that is going to go away forever. And funny enough, I mean, they kind of brought it back with that new gem system a while, but I mean, that's here or there, another thing. But it's just an example of like, not wasting development time, not wasting resources on content that won't come back. But I guess like, there's always going to be gambles. Luckily for us, in some fashion, you know, Blizzard Entertainment, the Diablo team, I believe, is much bigger than like GGG. So they have more potential QA testers, more people on their team to run checks by. Hopefully, we have a smoother time with certain things. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. Who knows? But that's what I would hope for.
Yeah, and that's
I,
what.
I, I was also going to say though, with the campaign though, is that if it's similar to Diablo 3, which I believe it is, where you don't need to do quests, because what they've told us is that you could get to a certain point in the game without doing any campaign. We don't know what that point is yet, but we have been told that specifically in interviews and videos from the Diablo team.
Yes. However, to unlock the world tiers, it states that you have to complete
Uh,
the campaign. So.
I will also mention, Nas, right now it looks like you are unlocked. I have to unlock you, it looks like.
Oh, I know.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I'm slowly being more and more encompassed by the demon.
Yeah, don't let them
um,
take over. I
but
see the
uh,
shadows coming into the room.
but yeah. So the main issue I have right now with that is that if they implement things, they have already announced that they're looking into bringing sets into the game. Like you brought the sets idea, and they're talking about bringing the sets to the thing. And I think bringing sets is a really good idea, and it's a really good thing to do. However, I disagree that it's a good idea to have 3 month seasons because having 3 month seasons means that every 3 months you need to learn something new. And by next year, that's 4 things you need to learn something new. And let's say your friend didn't want to buy it yet, or they couldn't buy it yet, or something else was going on, or whatever it is. I'm not saying hold it off for that one person, okay? I'm not saying that. I am saying if you did 4 months instead of 3 months, if you just did 4 months, that would be no, it'd be 5 things if they come back in a year. Because in a year, it'll be 4 seasons already done. It'll be sort of the fifth season. So if they came back and did 4 month seasons, that means that every single year we have 3 seasons, which is one less season. But in the grand scheme of things, that's a lot of less seasons. One per
I would
year.
agree. I totally agree because I
And
mean they're doing it from a financial standpoint, but also because they know they're going to have to compete with PoE, and PoE 2 is going to be coming out, and that's going to hit the ground hard. Like
yeah,
that like oh man,
it,
it's
I,
going to
don't,
be
I, don't, I
nuts.
don't know if you read it or not too, but they also announced that the
And
season.
also Last Epoch, and like they're gonna like even if you look at these other games too, we got Torchlight, we got Last Epoch, we got Wilson, we got PoE. What else am I missing in this space?
I can't think of anything right now. But
But you know, you
yeah.
got at least 4 to 5 other ARPGs in this space that are all taking ARPG gamers' time. And obviously, there's people that just love Diablo. But you know, all these other games are going to be advertising and putting out new things, and people are going to be like, "Wait, so this game's doing that? Why isn't Diablo doing this?" But they're supposed to be the ones with the most experience in the space, right? And they have a
So
lot of weight on their shoulders.
there's one that a little bit too, and that's why I'm saying if you do 4 months, by doing 4 months, you give us one extra month to take our time in playing Diablo 4. And that's one thing that Diablo 4 is trying to stress is that they want you to explore Sanctuary. They want you to seek Sanctuary. They want you to talk to the people of Sanctuary. But you give me 3 months, I ain't got a lot of time. That 3 months is
I
not a
don't
lot of
think that's
time.
what seasons are. That's not what seasons are for, though. That's not what seasons have
No,
ever
no, no,
been
no, no.
for.
I'm aware of that, but I'm saying that the casual Andes, in let's look at Diablo 3 for example. Diablo 3, you look at the season journey, right? You go through, do the season journey, you do all that. You can have the season journey done in 2 3 days if you actually try hard. Or we can use one of my friends who had it done in 3 weeks, and they took slow time doing it. They went slow. They spent from 2 to 4 hours for like 2 days a week, and that was it. Like the very first release, they grinded up to 70 really quick. They got to like 500 Paragon, and then they started going after the season journey. After that, they completed all the way up to the season journey, and they also completed. Well, the season journey was done already. They were completing their altar of rights. I think that the battle pass, which is why I'm bringing this up also, this is why I'm bringing up seasons, because the seasons tie into battle pass, because the battle pass will be coming along with seasons, which is why I want to bring that up real quick. You're saying that 3 months is a good idea. 3 months to fill the battle pass that they have already stated is going to have higher end tiers and have to have you do so many dungeons, so many bosses, all this and all that. Making it to where the battle pass, like I said, you feel like you're always working towards the battle pass until the end of the season, is bad game design in my opinion. I think that the battle pass for free or for paid or whatever you want to do it should be able to be completed within 1 to 1.5 months.
I
Otherwise,
think I could agree with that. Like if it well,
I'm talking about
hmm,
casual Andy. Casual Andy should be able to complete it in one and a half,
yeah,
1 to 1.5 months.
yeah, I would agree, and I think that they will be able to. I mean, if we look at anything, like if we look at not just other battle passes or similar battle passes, but if we look at the Traveler's Log from WoW, one of Blizzard's other games, I think it's going to be very similar to the Traveler's Log, and I'm pretty sure the Traveler's Log is what we can come to expect of the battle pass bit. I think we're going to see a
Um,
mixture. I think we're going to see a mixture of what we already see with like Kierke's Vault in PoE, what we see in already with Fortnite, what we see already in
I,
Halo, what we see
I
already.
hate to be a bearer about news right here, but how about we just use one of Blizzard's games and against them, Diablo Immortal. I know we've been trying to that game this entire time, and we haven't mentioned Diablo
I think
Immortal at
you have
all.
to. I think you like. I don't really like. There's some things from Immortal, obviously, that have
The battle
influence
pass,
for,
the battle pass
but
from Diablo Immortal is what I'm trying to say. Let's just use the battle pass
okay.
from Diablo Immortal, like the
I
game,
mean, it is another Diablo title, so yeah.
and it's made by the same creator and everything like that. Like it's the same everything. The only thing difference is it's Immortal that no one wants to talk about and Diablo 4 that
Well,
everyone's excited
no,
for.
no. I'm pretty sure that no. Each Diablo has a different team. Immortal is not the same team as four.
I never said it was the same team. I just Blizzard. It's Blizzard.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I said
Yeah,
there's
same company still. Same
yeah,
company.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let's look at it that way. The battle pass for that was absorbently hard to do. I played Immortal religiously for the first almost month and a half. I didn't spend a single penny on that game at all. I just slammed out everything. And it having a weekly cap of me being able to unlock the battle pass was the most atrocious thing that I had ever witnessed in my life. It took me almost a month, or a little bit over a month, to finish a battle pass, and I was grinding out my heart to get it done. Like I had everything done in the week within like a day or
Yeah.
two. Like it being locked behind that is so atrocious. And
I don't think that'll be the case though,
oh,
because
I agree.
yeah,
I'm trying to use that as an example though. It's like the
yeah,
challenges got harder and harder to complete every single time, and it led to the point to where I needed to kill world bosses. I needed to, not world bosses, but raid bosses because there's raid bosses back in Mortal, and like if you defeated them at a higher difficulty, you got more points.
yeah.
So I
I think you should look more at like games like World of Warcraft because World of Warcraft is a better comparison. I think in my opinion, I think that Diablo Immortal was just a test of some things that they wanted to do in four, and then also seeing, personally how much money they can make off of this mobile game because it's a mobile game. It's a mobile game that had a PC port, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. It was just ported to PC. It was never a PC game. It was never even meant to be on the PC. They originally said it wasn't going to be, and they just realized they could put it on PC, so that's what they did. I think if you look games like World of Warcraft with the Traveler's Log or the Battle Pass in Overwatch 2, those are much better. And, Overwatch 2's Battle Pass does have problems where it is static XP, and even at the end levels, it's always, I believe, 1,000 XP or 10,000 XP per level. So there's that. Hopefully, it isn't in that light, and it's more in line with World of Warcraft or other games that have battle passes. Um, but I'm sure they've done a lot of data, and I think it's going to be a lot better than Immortal ever can or will be.
I hope so too. And I do like that they said that you will never be able to purchase fast passes for battle passes
Correct.
after
After.
after this pre-purchase, because this
Yes.
pre-purchase actually gave you accelerated, and after this they said that they will no longer allow accelerated
Yeah.
or tier purchases. Where currently right now, if you go buy the big edition of Diablo 4, you get early access for 4 days, and on top of that you also get accelerated battle pass, and you also get the accelerated EXP.
Something I want to mention too, because I was wrong on this earlier. I was using the wrong terminology. I was saying collectors when I spoke earlier. Like Zydrade said, collectors is just the edition that you buy from the website that
Yep.
doesn't come with the game, but it has the booklet. It has the book of the art and a bunch of other
Ultimate
things in
edition
it.
is what you meant.
Their standard, deluxe, and ultimate edition, and you get the when do you get the head start, and when do you get the battle pass?
The head start is deluxe.
Okay.
So all you need to do is buy the tier two. The You unlock the seasonal battle pass. You get it unlocked by doing digital deluxe. However, you get the accelerated seasonal battle pass, and unlocks 20 tier skips for the ultimate.
Okay. And then I believe there's other stuff too for other Blizzard games, but you'd have to just go on
Uh,
Battle.net and see what they say there.
I don't think so. Let me double check real quick.
Well,
So
there was rewards for other Blizzard games, like in World of Warcraft, you get a mount. I don't know what you
I'm
get in
checking right now.
Hearthstone. They always do that kind of cross promotion thing with other games, though.
I'm double checking right now. So, if you get the Ultimate Edition, you get the Wings of the Creator emote, Temptation Mount, and Hellborn Carapace Mount armor, all in Diablo 4. Then you get the Diablo 3 stuff. The Diablo 3 stuff is across the board, which is Anarius Rings and Anarius Murloc Pet in Diablo 3, Amalgamon of Rage Mount in World of Warcraft, and Umber Winged Darkness Cosmetic Set in Diablo Immortal. And all of that is across the board from the Standard Edition all the way to the Ultimate Edition. The only thing the Ultimate Edition has, other than Standard, the Deluxe and the Ultimate both have the Mount and the Mount armor for Diablo 4. So you get Diablo 4 stuff. And then the Ultimate Edition, you get the Wings of the Creator emote. So anything beyond the Standard Edition is all specifically Diablo 4 stuff, which I appreciate dramatically. I like that the Standard Edition, which is just basically the one that you have to buy if you want to play the game, comes with all the additional goodies for the other games, base in Standard, and if you want the extra stuff that they're going to introduce in the game for shop. Because let's be real, they're going to introduce this mount and the mount armor and the Wings of Creator. Well, maybe not the Wings of Creator emote because that's kind of unique. But the Temptation mount and the Hellborn Carapace mount armor, they're probably going to introduce that into the shop, or introduce it into a battle pass later on for a paid battle pass for cosmetics.
I can imagine that being the case, or like the Traveler's Log, where they might just bring it back in a rotation.
Yeah,
Like I'm sure they're gonna like borrow the ideas from their other games and see like, oh man, the Traveler's Log's popping off. It's great that people could save XYZ thing, get it in a month or 2 months or 3 months later, all this other stuff. I mean, it's great ideas that I just don't understand why they wouldn't borrow it, and I'm sure that the teams and the people work and talk together. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. I think it's going to be good. I'm really not worried about it. I mean, there's not too much that I'm worried about. Not really.
So
Like,
There's one thing I am really worried about, and I'm going to mention it now. I wish I was to say this off stream, so it'd only be insider information for you and I.
Wait,
But
wait, 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 wait. Think about this. Think about it for a second. Think about it for a second. Think about it for a second.
I did, and I think that I think this should be fixed.
Type it to me
Honestly,
first. Type it to me first.
no, no, no. I'm gonna say it out loud. I'm gonna say it out loud right now.
Oh no. Okay.
So in the beta, we went around and did world events and
Okay.
dungeons. When you did these world events and dungeons, you got these coins. Mysterious coins you can go use to get whispering keys
Oh
or gamble
shit.
for gear.
Oh boy.
So, the issue I have right now is that while you're leveling up in the campaign, you will never use those gambling items until World Tier 4, and when you get to World Tier 4, you're able to slam those coins into gambling immediately and get those new uniques and those new ancestral items. I think they should limit the gambling tokens to the World Tier that you get it from.
Um. Yes. Yes. You're not wrong. I totally agree. Actually, that is huge.
Because
Also to be clear,
did you even think about this?
I don't know. Like they're honestly they are gambling tokens. I mean, I'm not gonna deny that. I mean, like gambling's gambling, and this is gambling. You could get any projected like as far as we know, you could get any projected rarity of that said item that you buy with said coins, and you're just gambling for said item and then also said rarity of said item with said stats that you want of said item. So it's just it's it,
So, what I'm trying to get at right now is if they don't change it, the moment you unlock World Tier 4, you instantly just go gamble. And the reason why you instantly gamble is because some builds need uniques to pop off. So let's use a hypothetical of like the Shaco for the helmet, right? Let's say your build uses a Shaco, and that's the only unique you need. Well, guess what? You now have 5,000 gambling tokens that you've accumulated from World Tier 1 for the campaign that you've done, completing all your renown for World Tier 3, and now you have World Tier 4 unlocked. You now go to the helmet. Um, yep. I do know about that already. That's already official.
okay.
But yeah, so like you're able to do that, and you're able to take all these 5,000 coins that you saved up and just slam them all down to try and get the Shaco right away. And that, in my opinion, is cool and bad because it allows me to save up all my two materials that I have from this low level. I'm able to start from level 1 immediately, do this events, start compiling all of these tokens, and just stockpiling them in my little baggie. Just be like, get over here. You know. And then now I hit World Tier 4, and guess what? I now have an Ancestral Shaco already. Like, I know it's level 70. I get it. I know it's level 70. But who cares it's level 70? It's Ancestral. It's a Shaco. Gives me plus 2 to all stats. Gives me a huge damage reduction flat. And it is the helm that I need for my build. Only thing that's going to replace that is a level 100 Ancestral Shaco. And until then, I'm okay with this level 70 Shaco. Who cares? It's a unique. The uniques
Yeah,
cannot
no,
be...
that's fine. Honestly, I think that's fine.
You think it's
I don't
fine
think
to
that's a
just...
problem.
You don't think it's a problem?
No, I don't think it is. I think like let the player play with the items how they want to play. I mean, that's reminiscent of Diablo 1, 2, and 3. It's
Gold,
reminiscent of
yeah.
how other ARPGs are. I mean, look at like great example. Look at PoE. Like there's a reason why Gold Rim is a leveling unique. There's a reason why Wonderlust is a leveling unique. There's a reason why all these other items are leveling uniques. Generally speaking, not used at higher level, but they can be. They could be modified. There's obviously
Yeah.
ways. And the same thing happens for Diablo. Look at Diablo 3. I mean, the gem of hoarding, finding items with level reduction, finding using a low tier sages set even at level 70 until you get the level 70 sages set.
Yeah,
Things of that nature.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So you think that it's fine that in World Tier 1 as I complete the campaign, I get these tokens that I will be using at max level to get max level gear without having to kill a single mob. You think that's okay?
I think that it that part I don't think is okay in this very specific example.
Because that's
I
basically what I'm saying. I have it
Yeah.
written down here. gamble at World Tier 4 because let's be real. Why would I
Oh
use
no,
it?
I plan to as well.
Did you even think about that?
You're well, I did think about it, but I'm thinking about it differently because I plan on starting hardcore.
Yeah.
And in hardcore, I need the legendary. It's like you don't need the legendary, I need the legendary.
You mean the
I
unique,
want to
right?
get a legendary no matter what. So I'm gambling every time I go back to town.
I to dissuade you from that point, in World Tier 1, you won't need to.
Oh no, in World Tier 1, yeah. Like so I should have been a little bit more clear. In World Tier 1 I won't, but when I get to World Tier 3, I'm gambling instantly.
Yeah, because you need it unique or whatever. Because here's the thing: if you can get Shaco World Tier 3, you're gamble that Shaco immediately. Get that unique. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
exactly.
and then to talk about what you just brought up too, I actually have it written down already. It's the Whispering Tree. That's what it's talking
Yeah.
about. And they've already
Yeah,
they
that's
already
what
presented
Azure
that.
was talking about.
Yeah, so we already presented. They already presented that in the videos, and that's a really cool thing to bring up. So the tree itself gives you bounties, and those bounties, when you go back and turn them in, you get a choice of 3 caches. 3. You get a choice of choose one. So remember how like when you completed quest, you got a cache of herbs.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. It's just like a cache of weapons, a cache of armor, a cache of helms, stuff like that. But yeah, I still have a lot of other points to bring up and stuff like that, but I feel like we covered a lot. The world tier discussion took a lot longer than I expected it was because we got a lot way off topic.
We got off topic multiple times, and there's so many things that tie into the world tier too that is really jarring. But hey, we did a really good job of not delving into classes yet, and a few other topics that we have planned out for the coming shows.
Yeah, because I mean, seasons and battle pass was really quick. We got that. Like, I want to talk about unstoppable and CC and staggering bosses. They did a
Yeah,
massive change of that.
let's
No,
just
no,
have a discussion real quick
no, no, no.
about what we're going to be talking about in future weeks, so
Yeah, yeah.
people can expect that.
So I sent it to you already. Let me go ahead and look at what I pinned real quick. So next week, on April 25th, we're going to be covering Sorks. I think during that time we can talk about a lot about CC and becoming unstoppable because that's when we get into our first conversation about Frost. We can cover Frozen and how Frozen works and all that stuff, and Chill. Chill is a big thing too because if you read things, it says adds Chill modifier and stuff like that. So being able to cover that is very, very important. Necro after that. When we talk about Necros, we're talking about minions, minion builds, non-minion builds, sacrificing stuff, and the limited abilities that they're able to use. Because let's be real, if you run 2 minions, you only have 4 spells, where every other class will have 6. That's very, very important. Barbarians, let's be real, they get to wield 4 different weapons. By wielding those 4 different weapons, they get 4 different weapon aspects. And during those 4 weapon aspects, they get 2 two-headed weapon aspects, which are 200% increased value.
And then you got weapon mastery and
Yeah.
expertise on top of that, and then on top of that, you got arsenal. Like people don't even understand. Like I like people, dude. People like, bro. Barb is hands down the most broken class in the game. If you think otherwise, you don't understand how multipliers work. You don't understand how numbers work if you don't think barbs are the most broken class in the game.
I mean, barbarians are the only one that can wear the godfather, the grandfather. I mean,
It's not even just because of multipliers. Well, it is because of multipliers, but it's like
I was to say the
man,
grandfather gives you 100% increased critical strike
yeah.
damage. Like
Oh
that is
man,
that
just
is insane.
oh, man.
Like they're
Yeah,
the
and
only
then
ones that get to wear
yeah.
that. So they're the highest critical strike
May
rates.
16th we have rogues.
Yep, we cover rogues. I think the rogues is going to be a very interesting topic to talk about because they have some very unique mechanics. And then we cut onto our favorite, which is the one that we're both going to be playing when we start out, Druid. Um, on the 30th, though, we will be doing our last minute prep and talk about Diablo 4. And during that time, we'll cover any patch notes that have come out. We'll be covering a lot of the conversation regarding. Actually, we may change that up. 30th may be Druid, and the 27th, which is next week, might actually just be review of the interview from tomorrow or 2 days from now. Because I forgot about the interview that is in 2 days. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we might change it up a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think limiting ourselves to 2 to 2.5 hours of conversation is fine. I think it gives us ample time. I appreciate you all for being here and stepping forward towards the evils of hell. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Diablo 4.
I am too. It's gonna be a good time. And remember, our fellow Zachramites, keep your knowledge up, Keep always learning. Keep trying to improve. Stay with the light. Don't drink the blood. And remember, your prayers do not fall on deaf ears. Just know that they are being heard. There is justice within the lights, but you always have to be patient. A fellow Zachram priest.
I am happy we went with Zachram.
We got the hashtag on Twitter as well for Travincal Tuesday.
Nice, nice, nice.
The VOD will be up right after this on my channel and on Senpai Games channel, so hope you all have a good one with that. Make sure to follow us on our socials. I always post on Twitter and Facebook, mainly Twitter, what's going to be going on with all the stuff, and our Discord servers as well. So hope to see you all guys next week. Hope you had a fun time. See you then. Have a good one.
Take it easy, man. Have a good day, and see you all next week on Tuesday.